Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. Folks, today is a big day. We have got a lot going on in the pre-markets. I didn't even realize how much macro data we had this morning, but we have a lot of macro data to get into. We have GDP reports, we have job data, we have consumer expenditure, so we got a lot to talk about before we get into all the topics that we had from yesterday, including the stuff that happened after hours, Sofi. I know there's a lot of people wondering what the heck is going on, so we'll break that down and go deeper into it. But outside of that, you got Meta today, you got Microsoft today, you have Robinhood today, and then you have Grab today, not to mention a lot of other companies that have already reported in the pre-markets, Etsy being one of them, and you got a bunch of other companies after the bell. So there is so much to cover. And then on top of all that, VRT is pumping up because they had pre-market earnings as well. Powell, and the Fed is going to be speaking today. So this is, I think, going to be one of the busiest days that we've had in the month of July. We're pretty much ending out July, 2 days away from ending it out. VRT right there is up about 5% in the pre-markets. And we got a lot to discuss. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, today's going to be a big day. It's one of those days where you realize that there's a lot of moving parts to this puzzle that is the economy that ultimately influences our investments in the stock market. I know a lot of people own a lot of the stocks they're going to be reporting today. And so we got to go deep into understanding kind of what is going on and try to get further from there. Before we get started with everything, Wingstop had earnings. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we got going on. Macro. Also, I forgot to mention Trump put on some more tariffs this morning. So we'll talk about that as well. Let's start off with it. July ADP payrolls. We get non-farm payrolls on Friday. Today, we got private ADP payrolls, 104,000 versus 77,000 expected. Not bad. Not a bad report, but we do have 104,000 versus 77,000 expected. Hospitality, 46,000. Financials, 28,000. Transportation, 18,000. Construction, 15,000. I don't think this takes into account the amount of jobs we're losing starting in September based on government jobs that are going to be taken away. But in terms of just private ADP payrolls, because the government stuff will be for more non-farm payrolls, you have a B, which again makes the argument, hey, maybe the labor market is hot enough where we don't have to cut rates. The rate cut probabilities were at 62% yesterday. They're now at 61% for September, not for July. So not that big of a deal in terms of the September move. For July, they are down to 2.1%. So there is a chance. It just feels a bit unlikely. Then on top of that, not only do you have private ADP payrolls, you got GDP estimates. Folks, we came in, this is from the Bureau of Economic Analysis in the United States, initial estimates on Q2, 3%. 3%, which is a very, very healthy GDP number. It's one of those numbers that, like, you really need to see if we're talking about AI productivity and growth and all that stuff. Like, you want to see high levels of growth. We are, an economy that doesn't grow as fast as, for example, economies in Southeast Asia, but Southeast Asian economies aren't as developed as the United States economy. So for a developed economy to still be growing at about 3%, China's at about 5.1%, but their economy has a lot of other issues, is pretty incredible. However, there is some nuance to it. So although the top line number of GDP is good, which is what everyone's looking at, if you take a look at this chart right here, real final sales to private domestic purchasers, which is a subset of understanding what goes into the actual GDP estimate. GDP is real gross domestic product, and then these are real final sales to private domestic purchasers. That came in at 1.2%. That number is not really the best. It is not horrible, but it's not but it's not amazing. It is the lowest quarterly reading since 2022. It's the lowest quarterly reading since 2022. So it paints sort of a picture when we're looking at the macroeconomy right now of a variety of things happening. You've got GDP that's growing, so it's like, okay, that's good on the top line. But then when you look a little bit under the hood, certain parts of GDP are growing, but they're not growing at the levels that GDP on the headline is growing at 3%, which begs the question, hey, maybe do we need the rate cut? And then on top of that, you have the labor market, which jolts yesterday came in a little bit lower than expected, which is actually a good thing. You had a ton of private payroll ADP jobs come in better than expected for the past, basically call it, 5 months. February 77, March 155, April 62, May 37, June -33, and then July 104. So it's a little bit of a bouncing out outside of June, which had some seasonal weakness towards it. But it doesn't necessarily signal a definitive yes or no when it comes to rate cuts. Whereas back in 2023, or at least 2022, it was more obvious that we needed to hike. And since then, it's been a little bit of a mixed box in terms of how obvious is it for Jay Powell and the Fed. So from that perspective, it's not a horrible piece of macro data or a set of pieces of macro data that we got today, but it definitely is making people question what exactly is the Fed going to interpret from what we have. And then on top of that, the one thing I didn't mention is real consumer spending quarter over quarter. Street thought that would come in at 0.5%. This is kind of like retail sales, but a much more sophisticated understanding of what retail sales looks like. Came in at 1.4%. Came in at 1.4. Consumer spending in the U.S. rose at an annualized 1.4% in the second quarter of 2025. Real consumer spending in the United States averaged 3.3% from 1947 until 2025, reaching an all-time high of 41% in the third quarter of 2020. Everyone was home. And a record low of negative 30% in the second quarter of 2020. The fact that the street was estimating less than 1% and we came in at almost double what the street, or almost triple what the street was expecting, 0.5 versus 1.4, not bad. Not bad at all. And so from that perspective, I mean, the market's kind of confused because you would think, all right, on a massive GDP number, the S&P would be green. And on a massive labor market number in terms of a beat of about 40,000 jobs, the S&P would be green. And the S&P is green, but it's not surging green. Granted, it's basically at all-time highs. 638 is the all-time high. We're at 636. But it's also not sure exactly what this means in the context of rate cuts. And quite frankly, do we really need rate cuts if the economy is super hot? Like, no, but if there's some underlying weakness in certain subsets of the economy, based on that real private domestic purchasers chart that I showed, which is one of many different charts that shows there are some cracks in the headline numbers, then maybe we do need a rate cut versus just staying put. So that's what we got in the context of the macro data. And then to put the cherry on top, you had Donald Trump this morning say, hey, you know what? India, you're getting 25% tariffs. He says, remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things are not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on August 1st, which is going to be 2 days from now. I guess we already had a deal done with India. I guess not. I also thought we had a deal done with India, which is why, I mean, Msft literally was teasing that India would be the next deal. India is not the next deal. Wow, Palantir just got a price target upgrade from Loop Capital, 178. Loop Capital was like, hey, Piper, we are going to be more bullish than you guys. I'll read what they said in a second. I just got the headline. They had 155. Now they took it to 178. They're all competing to like who could be the most bullish. That's like, I love when the suits just compete for that stuff. It's fun. It's very fun. What's going to go on with India? Look, I don't think anything with India is that serious. I also don't think what Trump tweeted right before that, which is that the August 1st deadline is final, is that serious. Literally, Msft, we watched like 2 interviews over the past 48 hours where Msft said on different networks, hey, the August 1st deadline is not that serious. I mean, if you just kind of read between the lines of what he said, he was like, if countries come to the negotiating table on August 2nd, the August 1st deadline will take effect. But if they want to negotiate on August 2nd, we will reduce the tariffs based on the negotiation. So this is not some hardcore deadline that will not allow the taco to be made. The question is just how long does it take for the taco to be made? And I think, you know, the taco will eventually get made because Trump doesn't want to tariff all these countries. And again, the worst case scenario here is that we have 50% tariffs on some country that we barely do any trade with. So it's not like it's the biggest deal in the world. It's not like these are China, Russia, or massive countries like Canada, Mexico, etc. But it still could have an impact on inflation, and more importantly, could have an impact on the Fed's perception of inflation. Jay Powell's not going to be happy if we're throwing around 30, 40, 50% tariffs on countries that we do a couple billions of dollars of trade with. Even if the major impact is not substantial, the perception of that impact is, hey, inflation. And as a result, Jay Powell might be a little skeptical. So I think Trump wants to get this done. The question is when, and hopefully towards the end of the summer, we get a little bit less pain in regards to some of these tariffs. Now, yes, it is not the best for Apple. 25% tariffs on India, which again, I think is going to be negotiated away. I think India is looking at this tweet right now and they're like, all right, what do we got to give them to get this 25% to go down to like 10%? But who knows if that stays put? Apple's reporting on Thursday. Apple already said in Q1 that they would have $1 billion. I think the exact number was $990 million hit in Q2, which is this quarter when it comes to revenue because of the tariffs. I mean, if they guide for another $1 billion hit over the coming 6 months, obviously that's not going to be the best. Maybe the street's anticipating it, but Apple right here at 210, down about 0.13. India tariffs, which India is now responsible for 17.1% of the overall iPhones that are made worldwide. That would not be a good thing. That would not be a good thing. India official states that they are working with the United States to reach a deal that benefits both sides. Yeah, literally the Indian media yesterday reported, NDTV, that by September they would get a deal done. So I think Trump putting out this 25% number is more so just, hey, let's get this deal done. Because if we don't get this deal done, we're going to have some issues. But I think both sides know that eventually they need to get a deal done, and they both want to get that deal done. All right, so that's what we got in the context of the macro. GDP at 3%, bullish. Labor market, 40,000 beat, bullish. Consumer expenditures, 1.4 versus 0.5%, bullish. Now is just a question for the big companies to match the bullish macro data to the hard data in regards to their earnings. Meta, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon. Meta and Microsoft up today. And if they can do that, hopefully this economy continues to gain momentum and we can continue to have the multiple and hopefully expand the multiple that we have on the S&P 500, which right now is at 21 times. Historically, it's at 18 times. Getting to 7,000 would kind of put us at closer to 23, 24 times. We got to be able to put up the numbers. And if we put up the numbers, it won't be the worst thing in the world. All right. Having said all that, Sofi. Let's talk about Sofi. We definitely have some issues going on with that. I know a lot of people are confused about it. Yesterday on the market close, if you go to the market close from yesterday and you click on the Sofi offering segment, we spent literally an hour breaking it down. So we'll kind of summarize and discuss what's happening. By the way, you had a Russian earthquake yesterday, 8.7% magnitude, pretty heavy. And then take a look at this video. Because of that, you had tsunami warnings in Japan and heavy waves. This is a whale that's being washed up on the shores of Japan because of how heavy those waves were. Pretty incredible, dude. Pretty incredible. It's hard to see that level of destruction, but economically that's going to have massive impacts, and obviously in the context of these countries and what happens in these countries, that's also going to. So we'll get more updates on what's going on with the earthquake in Russia, but that happened late last night, and I'm assuming that will have a lot of implications going forward for the coming 6 months to end out this year as well. All right, Sofi. So what happened? Sofi has diluted investors officially. The official dilution is $1.5 billion, and the $1.5 billion have been diluted through a public offering of common stock. And that offering has not only been offered, it's been completed at the share price of $20.85, with an opportunity for Goldman Sachs, which is the underwriter of this offering, to purchase an additional 10 million shares in the offering. So it is already confirmed. Late last night, it was confirmed. In the afternoon at 4 or 5 p.m., we got the offering of 1.5 billion, and then I think at like 11 at night or 10:30 at night, we got the pricing of the offering, which is $20.85. Now, a lot of people feel a bit annoyed about this because of this clip right here. This was Noto on CNBC. This was the last question he was asked. Take a look at what he says when he's asked about future dilution.
She'll want to raise some capital or kind of reset capital levels?
Listen, we're always looking at our balance sheet and making sure that we have our future plans well capitalized. We feel like our capital ratios are strong. They're obviously available for investors to take a look at, but they're well above our regulatory minimums. The capital market situation is one that we're always evaluating to keep our cost of capital low, but we feel like we have adequate capital on the balance sheet, but could be opportunistic from time to time if it can lower our cost of funding and help give us continued growth capital. But right now, our plans are adequately funded with our balance sheet, but we'll continue to evaluate opportunities.
Okay, so he basically said everything that needs to be said from a legal perspective, which is, yeah, I will disagree. He did not straight up lie, because he said we reserve the right to be opportunistic. And legally, that means the opportunity, if it arises, if your stock jumps up as much as it does, 17% in a day, and then it ended up, jumping 6% at the end, but still after a good earnings, stock goes up. They have the opportunity, as Noto said, to be opportunistic and raise capital for whatever strategic purposes they think that is the case. The problem that's annoying a lot of shareholders and new time shareholders is that last sentence. He added a caveat after saying we have the right to be opportunistic by saying, but right now we feel we are well capitalized on the balance sheet. And as a result of that, it's not illegal. It's not wrong. It just feels a little scummy. And I'm not accusing Noto of being scummy. I'm just kind of voicing the sentiment of a lot of SoFi bulls. I read their takes last night. And Sachin, big fan of the channel. He's a friend of mine personally. He's had a massive SoFi position. He wrote a pretty long post yesterday saying, I'm really annoyed at how this all played out. And that's why the stock right here is down 7.5%. And then the fact that they didn't just announce the offering, the offering happened. like last night at 10:30 when I saw that the offering's done, I'm like, oh, they just dumped the shares. Like, it's done. They took advantage of the liquidity that existed based on these earnings, and they dumped the shares in the public markets at the money, and they were able to get 1.5 billion by diluting about 71.9 million shares. Now, what is my actual take on this? My personal perspective. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And the reason for this is right here. Q1, this is what they said on the transcript. In addition to enabling members to invest in crypto coins, we will enter other areas over the next 6 to 24 months, but potentially much sooner via acquisition. So to me, the fact that they announced the offering right after earnings obviously was them being opportunistic, for lack of a better word, to be able to take advantage of the liquidity. I mean, remember, SoFi shares were trading above $20.85, the price they diluted at. It hadn't traded there for over 3 years, right? If they did this when the stock was like 13, 14 bucks, you would have almost double the amount of shares that were offloaded onto the outstanding float, which means they needed to wait until the stock got up a bit. And they kind of guaranteed the stock would get up by putting up 44% revenue growth. And then ultimately they did what they needed to do when it came to dilution. However, the fact that they did it, or they announced it, and then they did it in the same day, to me, just purely like 2 + 2 = 4, the way I'm kind of thinking of it, they are ready to make an acquisition very soon. Now, I could be wrong about this. I have no idea what company they're trying to acquire. We tried to figure it out on the chat yesterday, and we came up with some answers, but there weren't any good ones. By the way, Hershey crushed earnings. They're up 2.8%. We'll talk about them in a second. Starbucks as well, up about 5.3%. It's a crypto company, most likely. That's what we're speculating. And it can't be as big as Kraken. Kraken, by the way, just filed to go public at a $15 billion valuation. Talk about being a really good time to be in the crypto markets. But it can't be something like BKKT, which is another crypto exchange, which is only $145 million. They diluted yesterday as well. That's why their stock was down 41%. And so, like, I don't know who Noto is eyeing. The one thing that Tanner did bring up yesterday when he came on the show is that management historically has made good acquisitions, but they've overpaid. So Galileo and Technisys, they bought around 2020, and obviously that was a bit more of a frothy market. They paid a hefty fee for those companies, about $1 billion, I believe, for Galileo. And while those acquisitions have been good, you know, when you pay that much and you have that much dilution, it takes a whole strain on the stock. So now the question is, do you trust Noto to be able to adequately allocate this 1.5 billion, which I don't think it's to just bolster their balance sheet to further extend their loan pipeline, which they could do, but they're already growing so fast. I mean, like, did they really need another $1.5 billion to be able to just sell more loans? I kind of doubt it. I don't think they're starting a Bitcoin or Ethereum treasury. That's not like Noto. I would imagine they're buying a company. And the question is, who are they going to buy? So my perspective is simple. It's annoying for shareholders. Again, I don't have a massive SoFi position, so I'm not as pissed off as a lot of the other people that are heavy in SoFi. I do have options, and I hope the stock is above 20 by January 2026 for those options to play out. But it highlights to me that they are being very aggressive in this moment to be able to acquire whatever company they need to acquire. And again, we don't know if it's an acquisition, but I don't know why you need 1.5 billion if you're not going to be acquiring a company, especially at this stage of the state of the company. And as a result, long-term shareholders just have to wait. I mean, the idea that SoFi was going to go to 35, 40 and really have that breakout moment this year, even with rate cuts, maybe, but now you have 71 million shares that just got dumped in the open markets, which puts a strain on the stock. And number two, there's an overhang on the stock because now you know, okay, you've got these shares. Goldman Sachs has the opportunity to buy another 10 or 15 million shares, and that could happen, which means Goldman Sachs doesn't have any incentive to get the stock to go up because they can continue to buy more shares on the low. And if SoFi really wants that money, then they're going to let them do whatever they want to be able to raise that cash and then go out into the private markets and hopefully acquire a company. Then the question is the company they acquire has to be value accretive, which is another reason it's going to be a little hard, in my opinion, to see the stock just like get to 30, 40, 50 and really make that breakout move, even with incredible revenue growth and rate cuts, because whatever company they're acquiring has to actually add value to the overall business. And M&A is not easy, right? They've got to be able to meaningfully allow that relationship to take place. And just who knows if that's going to happen? Who knows if the synergy will be as strong? So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on SoFi. And yeah, at the end of the day, if you're a long-term shareholder, I wouldn't, if you're holding this for the next 10 years, you've got to be happy that management's using capital to be able to buy another company and become more of a one-stop shop and diversify their business, all this stuff. But I can understand you're pissed off, because if I was heavy in a company and they raised money by dumping it on shareholders, by dumping shares on, they're using shareholders to get liquidity, to then use that liquidity to go build the business. And it begs the question, how well are they at allocating capital from the shareholders to then go build the business? Noto has not really given anyone a reason to not trust his judgment in terms of allocating capital. It's just doing it after the company's best earnings in history, where the market actually recognized those earnings, which is why the stock was up almost 20%. The only reason it fell was because the whole market fell towards the end of the day, is a bit annoying. And I can understand why it is a bit annoying. So there you go. That's what you got. I don't think it's the most bearish thing in the world, but I understand why people are upset, because they're like, hey, like, why did you have to do this right after earnings? But quite frankly, that's the reason they did it, right? Earnings were so good, then they knew earnings would be that good. The market reciprocated, and then they were able to take advantage of the liquidity. Question is just going to be how this ends up playing out for them long term. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on SoFi. We'll see how the market opens. I mean, I have no idea. It's down 7%. It kind of feels like a lot of pain has already happened. But at 9:30, when the market's actually open, we might see real pain, as this one, as people just say, screw it, I'm done. I'm not. But like the reason, the people, some of the people that were tweeting last night basically said, hey, I wasn't a SoFi shareholder. I watched the Noto interview. I saw 44% revenue growth. I was excited. And I said, this is a good business. I'm going to trust my capital with SoFi. I'm going to buy in, because any company growing 44%, that's like a legit business and profitable. It's going to get people's attention, no matter who you are as an investor. And then this gets dumped on you right after. And, it's the nature of the markets, and you kind of have to deal with it. But it does mean that people are pissed off. Long term, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but short term, obviously, it is a bit annoying. So there you go. That's what you got on SoFi. Earnings. We got a bunch of earnings this morning. A lot of stuff came out. Let's take a look at some of these numbers, and then we will keep going from there in terms of earnings. Hershey's, Etsy, Wingstop, a lot of these companies. Let's start off first with Wingstop. Palo Alto is dumping because they're acquiring cyber. Quite frankly, it makes me more excited to look into Palo Alto. I've never bought this because I've always thought it's expensive. Granted, CrowdStrike is also expensive. The cybersecurity names have always been expensive, but they're acquiring a company called Cyber for $25 billion, a little bit more than the $22 billion that they're worth currently right now. Every time I catch myself saying it's hilarious, but because it's so natural, but then I catch myself. But this stock was up 11% yesterday. So the reason CyberArk is not moving today, even though it got acquired, you see that candle right there, is because it went from 370 to now 430. And so that acquisition will be taking place. I think it's a good thing for Palo Alto. I think we're seeing some consolidation in cybersecurity. And I don't think that's a big deal, because you're going to get a lot of demand for cybersecurity in the age of AI, and Palo Alto and CrowdStrike seem to be the big players in that industry. Wingstop. They're up 20%. Wingstop is up 20%. Why is Wingstop up 20%? Well, they beat on EPS by 15%, $1 versus 87 cents. And on revenue, they beat 174 versus 173 million. Wingstop was not really the best performing stock this year. Year to date, it's now flat, but it was down about 14% over the past month. So any good earnings that you could get from Wingstop would be a reason for why those earnings would be potentially strong for shareholders and for the stock. And that is why we're seeing some of that momentum there on Wingstop. Etsy, they missed by 49% on their EPS. EPS is now down 40% year over year. Revenue, they beat by 4%, 672 versus 647. Etsy right here, that stock I think was up in the pre-markets. That stock is up 7% in the pre-market. So that's what we got on Etsy. By the way, real quick, speaking of Palo Alto, we got the Palo Alto CEO on CNBC. Let's switch over to him real quick, then we'll get back to earnings and see why he's paying $25 billion for this company.
Markets when they inflect, because inflection points create the opportunity for us to enter markets and provide our customers differentiated service. And I believe with the AI wave we're seeing all around us, with agentic AI, with 88% of all ransomware attacks driven by credential theft. Identity is an unsolved problem. In that context, we looked at every player in the market, obviously, and I don't believe identity inflection is going to happen with a new player. I think the existing players are strong, with CyberArk being the strongest player in the space. And we spent a lot of time, Udi and myself and his team, and they are poised to go and disrupt this market and create the platform we need, and also solve the upcoming problem of agentic AI. So from all those factors, we believe this is the right time to do something like this. And
okay, so that makes sense. I mean, Google also bought Wiz for $32 billion, right? So when they're talking about identity, Google bought Wiz. Wiz is more cloud security versus identity. It's consolidation in the space that's likely healthy, and that's why we're seeing some of this stuff happen for the entire sector when it comes to cybersecurity. Hershey's right here, 121 versus $1. They beat by 21%. 261 versus 252. They beat by 4%. Revenue's up 26% year over year. EPS is down 5% year over year. Hershey's, which has also been a little bit of a troubled stock over the past couple of years, that one is up 3%. So I'm going to go through all the transcripts of earnings this weekend and look at consumer demand, tariffs, all that stuff. We haven't seen a lot of data from a lot of these companies that tariffs or consumer demand is an issue yet. We've seen it isolated in a variety of companies, but not as an overall trend. And so as long as we continue to see that companies can deal with the tariffs and consumer demand is strong, as long as big tech performs, I think Q2 is going to be a success when it comes to earnings. And then finally, we had Vertiv, big data center play. They beat by 13%, 95 cents versus 84 cents expected. And then they beat by revenue 2.6 versus 2.36, beat by 12%. Revenue 35% year over year. That's tech company level growth. This is not a tech company. And EPS up 42% year over year. Again, they're putting up tech earnings, but they're not a tech company, but they're dealing with building a lot of tech when it comes to data center infrastructure. Vertiv right here up 4.2% on the day. Powell speaks at 2 p.m. 2:30. I will be live in New York City at 2:30 p.m. I'll be in New York today. We'll talk a little bit more about Robinhood earnings and Meta and Microsoft coming up in a bit, but I will be in New York, and I have rented out a WeWork. Apparently, you can rent a WeWork for $29. I did not know that. And I'll be streaming Robinhood earnings and Powell at 2:30 from New York. So we'll see what Powell says. I mean, he's not going to say anything that surprising. It's Powell. But at the end of the day, it should be important for the broader markets. Zucks, folks, he just put out a video. Let's see what he has to say. The caption of the video is "The Future of Personal Superintelligence for Everyone." Let's see what he has to say.
All right, ready? Hey, everyone. I want to talk about our new effort, Meta Superintelligence Labs, and our vision to build personal superintelligence for everyone. AI keeps accelerating, and over the past few months, we've begun to see glimpses of AI systems improving themselves. So developing superintelligence is now in sight. But there's this big open question about what we should direct superintelligence towards. A lot has been written about the scientific and economic advances that AI can bring, and I'm really optimistic about this. But I think an even more meaningful impact in our lives is going to come from everyone having a personal superintelligence that helps you achieve your goals, create what you want to see in the world, be a better friend, and grow to become the person that you aspire to be. This vision is different from others in the industry who want to direct AI at automating all of the valuable work. At Meta, we believe in putting the power of superintelligence in people's hands to direct it towards what they value in their own lives. Some of this will be about improving productivity, but a lot of it may be more personal in nature. This is going to be a new era in some ways, but in others, it's just a continuation of historical trends. About 200 years ago, 90% of people were farmers growing food to survive. Today, fewer than 2% grow all of our food. Advances in technology have freed much of humanity to focus less on subsistence and more on the pursuits that we choose. And at each step along the way, most people have decided to use their newfound productivity to spend more time on creativity, culture, relationships, and just enjoying life. And I expect superintelligence to accelerate this trend even more. The intersection of technology and culture is where Meta focuses, and this will only become more important over time. If trends continue, I expect that people will spend less time on productivity software and more time creating and connecting. I think that personal devices like glasses that can see what we see, hear what we hear, and interact with us throughout the day are going to become our main computing devices. I believe deeply in building personal superintelligence for everyone. And at Meta, we have the resources to build the massive infrastructure required and the ability to deliver new technology to billions of people. I'm excited to build this future, and we've got a lot more to come soon.
All right. If Zucks wanted to make the argument or to convince people that he was a robot, I mean, that video will do it for you. Goodness gracious. I don't think that was AI, but it definitely felt like AI. It goes to show how serious Mr. Zuckerberg is on being able to acquire the talent that is necessary to compete in the AI race. Now, why is this AI race getting stronger and stronger? Take a look at this for those that missed it. Anthropic, the parent company of Claude, which is one of the biggest large language models for coding. Their valuation is 170 billion. Folks, this is July of 2025. The valuation is $170 billion. In March of 2025, the valuation was 61 billion. Either this is the greatest bubble we've ever seen, and it's the most convincing bubble that we've all ever taken part of if you own anything in the AI tech stack, or this is really real. This is really real. And the growth, we don't have the exact growth rates for Anthropic, but the rumors say they're growing at like 5x every month, like some ridiculous number, because the demand for their product is massive. Almost every Fortune 500 company is using Anthropic models. And as a result, they need more money to continue funding their efforts to be able to do what they need to do. What is giving me the most conviction around AI is not even the earnings. It's the sheer amount of money that investors are looking at when it comes to allocating capital, because this is the only opportunity they see as meaningful. And then as a result of that meaningful opportunity, companies have so much liquidity to then go do something with this new technology that is literally, we are all the descendants of what this technology will look like. 100 years from now, AI will be a thing of the past because, we'll have something new or something more advanced than just AI. But right now, all of us in 2025 are living through what's happening. So much so to the point where Mark Zuckerberg offered someone at Mira Murati's new startup. Mira Murati is the former CTO of OpenAI. She left to build a startup called Thinking Machine or Thinking Labs. No, Thinking Machines. That's the name of it. Thinking Machines. She raised a couple $2 billion. She doesn't even have a product. The VCs gave her a couple $2 billion for the sheer fact that she was the CTO of OpenAI. Zucks gave an offer to one of the employees for $1 billion over 4 years. And, well, that employee said no. The fact that Zucks offered $1 billion and the employee said, no, I'm good, I'm going to stay here, just shows how much that employee thinks there's more upside at a startup that's rooted in AI. But hey, Zucks thinks there's a lot of upside in AI as well, and he's willing to deploy $1 billion on a human being, not a technology, not a company, on some researcher that he thinks will get them an opportunity in the future. Now, when I really start digging into why he's doing this, we made a lot of memes about AI researchers and MBA salaries and all this stuff. Realistically, Zucks is a businessman. All these guys are thinking of ROI, right? Sundar, Satya, Elon, etc. If they're thinking of giving $1 billion to a researcher, it means that researcher is so valuable, right? Like LeBron James, why does he get paid $50 million a year, which now seems like peanuts compared to these AI researchers, is because he's the guy who's supposed to carry the Lakers, right? And make the shots when it matters. And, he is that valuable. And the Lakers make billions of dollars off advertising and ticket sales and merch and all this stuff. So if you have LeBron, he's worth 50 million if you can make a couple billion. I mean, if you pay $1 billion to some AI researcher and they discover the next way that a model should operate, some of the researchers at OpenAI and DeepSeek came up with the reasoning models, and then reasoning became this brand new thing that every model had to incorporate. Zucks is thinking, okay, especially what he said in that video, if we can create super intelligence for everyone at scale, and I pay a couple $1 billion, even, 10, 15, $20 billion to a ton of researchers to come make that, what is that worth long-term? And I think Zucks and Sundar, which increased the capex on Google from 75 to 85 billion, Nadella, they're realizing it's going to be worth many, many trillions. Many, many trillions. Now, will that happen? Who knows? We're all going to live to find out and see over the coming decades and see if that plays out. But if it does, I mean, it's going to be pretty incredible. It's going to be pretty incredible. So I think that further gives me conviction on this AI revolution. And then when people talk about the ROI on AI, we're already seeing it. The reason Meta is expected to put up $44 billion of revenue in the next 7 hours when they report earnings is because AI and their GPUs that they bought for the metaverse has been pivoted for advertising, and that advertising is giving them a return on investment. Google, Amazon, Azure, right? They're seeing all this AI compute demand, Oracle, because of the large language models that are starting to scale. Gemini has 450 million users. Grok growing every single day. Grok 4, one of the best models when it comes to benchmarks. Perplexity's Comet browser, I have access to it, but I just have not had the time to really dive deep, but it is amazing. Shopify CEO Toby Luke came out yesterday and said, this is one of the best products I've ever seen. And that Perplexity Comet browser, which is essentially agentic browsers inside of your web experience, that's powered by AI. So Toby Luke said, I'm constantly impressed by Perplexity Comet. Amazing to give it a complex task and watch it claim a tab and toilet away. Browsers are interesting again. Every industry, supply chain, healthcare, manufacturing, everything is going to be flipped on its head because of AI. And that is why I think all this capital investment is being spent. And as a result, for investors, if the AI thesis does play out, this could be one of the greatest decades ever to be an investor on this planet. So there you go. That's what we got with Meta and an update on the AI trade. All right, Hoodie. Let's talk about Hoodie. How are people feeling? Let me put it in the chat. We'll do a pump or dump right here. I think there's a bit of nervousness across everybody because of the obvious argument around being nervous, which is that HIMS, by the way, 60-50. HIMS, talk about karma, huh? Novo freaking kicks HIMS to the ground. HIMS falls 30%. And then Novo has to reduce their outlook because of compounders. And instead of working with HIMS, they decide to sue them. Novo's down another 5% after going down 20% yesterday. 50 is the low that it hit in the pre-market. And now Novo is down 25%, and HIMS has basically recovered where it was from when they got hit with all the Novo controversy. So pretty incredible stuff to see. HIMS right here, 60.28. Hopefully can maintain that $60 level. And we'll see what that has going into the future. Salesforce right here, 261. Meta right here, 705 in the pre-markets. Robinhood, 104.05. The reason I think people are nervous about Robinhood is because of this chart right here. This is the chart of the graph of Hood's stock price. And since Q1 2023, they have had pretty strong growth. 47%, 52%, 29%, 24%, 40%, 40%, 36%, 115% last quarter, 50%. The analysts are expecting about 35% growth this quarter. If Hoodie can bring us 40% or maybe a little bit higher than that, that could also be very exciting. That could also be very exciting. And ironically, the PE continues to go down every quarter, even though the stock goes up, because they put up such phenomenal growth numbers that it's kind of, it kind of balances out the price earnings, which is still aggressive, and the price of sales. I'm not saying Hood's a cheap stock, but they're putting up the growth. And the prospects of future growth is what is so exciting. 55% of you say pump. Okay, look, here's the thing. I have no idea if it's going to pump or dump, but I cannot deny the stock went from 29 to over 100 in 3 months. It has had a phenomenal run. It has returned capital to shareholders. And Vlad, he's done it the right way. So for example, when they bought Trade PMR, which is a RIA platform with 40 billion of AUC, assets under custody, they paid $300 million for that firm. Robinhood bought back $322 million worth of their shares because they have the balance sheet and the ability to manage and allocate capital to be able to make it a net positive for shareholders. The fact that they can acquire companies and still make sure it doesn't dilute shareholders because they have the ability to buy back their stock because they have so much damn free cash flow and because they have damn near 40% operating margins that a lot of that cash goes to the bottom line, they have the ability to say we can return this capital to shareholders and still acquire. That is very rare. It is very rare to find a company that can grow the top line at these astronomical levels without having to dilute shareholders, which is what most companies have to do, right? In order to grow, they have to raise capital because their cash pile and their free cash flow and their net income is enough to buy back shares at the same time. Most of the time when a company is buying back shares, people say, oh, they can't grow anymore, right? So the only thing they can do is buy back shares. Robinhood's saying, no, we're going to grow like crazy, but we're going to make sure we do it in a responsible way for shareholders. And you got to give it up to the management team, the execution that they've done, and then the overall story of where they came from after GameStop in 2021. Rightfully, they got destroyed by the public markets because what they did was not a good thing. Whether it was a conspiracy or not, the point is they messed up, especially with the communication of it. And some people still blame them for that to this day. They got punished by the public markets for almost 3 years. And then Vlad said, screw it. I'm a world-class entrepreneur. I'm a world-class founder, and I'm not going to let this business die. And he has taken us for a hell of a ride. So Street's expecting about 915 million. I think they're going to put up around 920. I've seen some estimates say they can get to 950, 970 million. We're going to see. We're going to see today. And if they can put up the growth, and by the way, July has been an exceptional month for trading, volatility, equities, tokenization. They're expanding all throughout Europe. I think any level of they don't give like official guidance, but they give like some tidbits of what happened in the month of July. If they say July was a record quarter around options, equity, net deposits, trading, all that stuff, they gave you 2% to bring your crypto to the platform. They're giving you 1% to bring your assets to the platform. Like, they can give a really good guide for July. August and September tends to suck. So if they have a good July, I can balance it out. And that could also get the street excited. Now, granted, even if they have a good earnings, the problem is if we get a bit of an August slump, which you got this August 1st deadline coming out, anything could happen in August. Maybe that pump is not going to be able to sustain itself. But I think there's a world where Vlad can just say, guys, like, we're not slowing down. And this is really happening. And the street can reward him for that as well. So that's what we got on Robinhood. I'll be live at around 3:30 with Tanner and Roy, and we'll try to dissect that, and we go from there. Microsoft, quick preview. I think Azure's going to crush it. They grew at 45% or 35% last quarter. I think they will continue to grow at 35%. And if they do, then you should see some momentum on Microsoft. Now, Microsoft's already at all-time highs. So again, this one is another one of those names it's run up a lot going into the earnings. If there's any little bit of a miss or something the street might not love on guidance, whatever it may be, you'll probably see a little bit of a sell-off, but I don't see why Microsoft misses on any metric. I think it's going to be like a Google quarter where it's damn near perfect because, I mean, everything we're seeing in AI and AI workloads and AI demand, Google right here, 195, is assuming that there's going to be way more demand for compute and for cloud. And as a result, I think Microsoft will capitalize on that. 2 minutes until the market opens. NVIDIA is at 176. Folks, Morgan Stanley woke up today and they said, we like the stock. They have upgraded NVIDIA from 170 to 200. He cited strong demand for Blackwell chips, which is outpacing supply. Although supply constraints remain, improvement is expected in the second half of the year, likely boosting earnings. NVIDIA remains Morgan Stanley's top semiconductor pick. On top of that, we got Palantir with an upgrade from Loop Capital to 178 from 155. I'm not going to read the entire thing. We'll go into it after the bell. But essentially, they said, our checks and earlier meeting with management suggest Palantir's momentum continues, and we expect the stock to move higher over the long term, if only because the firm delivers best-in-class revenue growth plus margins and faces a decade-plus cycle similar to previous watershed shifts like the PC revolution or cloud computing. They're not saying that about every SaaS company. They're not saying that about every SaaS company. The fact that they think Palantir can be in a decade-long shift in regards to what's happening in AI, and they have the margins, as they're saying right here, exemplified by a rule of 81 score, to be able to capitalize on that momentum. That is why they're giving them the price target from 155 to 178. Loop Capital now has a street high on Palantir. Piper Sandler gave them 170 last week as well. All right, folks, here we go. 30 seconds. I think we'll do all eyes on Sofi. Does she dump or does she get a little bit of momentum? 57% of you say pump on Hood. 43% say dump. I'll be live at 3:30 tonight with Tanner and Roy, and we will see what we have for Hood, Microsoft, Apple, or Hood, Microsoft, Meta. And then Grab's at 8 p.m. I will not be live. Grab is 8 p.m. today. Unfortunately, I will not be live. I'm going to be in New York, but I will be probably tweeting about the results. And then tomorrow morning, we'll go deeper into what we have from Grab. All right, here we go. Wednesday, July 30th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. All right, SoFi opens down about 7%. About 7%. There you go. Not that crazy from what we had in the pre-markets. Kind of feels like the worst maybe is in. Maybe not. $20.88 down about 6.83%. That was basically the price they diluted at. So they diluted at this price. The stock is basically at this price. Nothing too crazy there on SoFi. Hershey's up 4%. UNH, again, a nasty earnings. That EPS guide was just not good. It just wasn't good. And even if they're sandbagging, that's why that stock is down. It's up a little bit right here, but that's why it's down yesterday, about 5%. Starbucks, not bad, up 5%. They beat on the top and the bottom, getting a little bit of red candle right there, but you got Starbucks right there, up 4.4%. Webull, I don't know why it fell yesterday. I think management dumped some shares. Again, they have $1 billion of a shelf offering, so they can do it whenever they want. Maybe that's what happened, but I didn't see any specific news on Webull. AMD, that's down. Grab, slightly green. Electronic Arts, that's green, up 2%. Hims, wow, 2.4. Hims, 6160, not too bad on Hims. That is getting some green momentum. Granny Shots goes down. BMNR, that's up. So that's up 3.4%. So you're getting some love on Granny Shots. Robinhood, that's a little green, 103.79. Royal Caribbean, 336. Spotify took a nasty 11% beating yesterday. Spotify right there at 620. They missed on advertising revenues. Nvidia, 176. That's green. Palo Alto, they acquired a company. That's why they're down. it happens whenever you spend 25 billion on a company. So not too crazy there. Palantir 158.22. That's up 1.27%. So Palantir getting some green. Humana had earnings. They also beat on the top and the bottom. They are green, up 7.3%. So not bad for Humana. Abercrombie, that's flat. Cadence, that had a good earnings. They're at 368. They are now way above where they were 2 days ago when they beat on earnings. VRT, great earnings. That's up 2.6. Vistra, that's up 1.3. Whereas Etsy, that had earnings today. Etsy's at 11. Wow, 11%. Dude, not bad. That's up. Lending Club, phenomenal earnings. Now, this stock was down a lot year to date, so any good earnings would get them to go higher. But a revenue growth of 32%. They're up 28% as we get into the market open. SoFi kind of staying still, guys. 2088. I mean, it's holding that level. So it was a phenomenal quarter. Again, there's no denying it was that good of a quarter. So you're going to have a lot of people say, we just don't want to sell it based on that quarter, even if we got diluted. And then you're just trusting management can use that dilution to acquire or use that money in a strategic way. But 2088, not really getting hit below that. Down about 7% right here as the market opens. Starbucks up 3%. That's losing the 5% pump. So that's down about 2% from the highs. IBIT 66.70. That's flat. Bitcoin 117. Deckers is down a little bit. Charter is down about 1.04%. Where is the Googs? Google is up, or never mind. Google is down 195. Microsoft, they have earnings today. That's down. Meta, that is down as well. Is everything down in the Mag 7? Apple's up a little bit after those India tariffs of 25% that Trump announced this morning. And then Tesla is up a little bit, 322. Tesla is up a little bit, 322. Oh, Visa had some good earnings too. The initial reaction was bad, but now it's up. Okay, good. Visa did not deserve to get hit. They were down almost like 4% yesterday. So Visa right there, 355. They do have to adapt to stable coins and the ever-evolving ecosystem of finance that's changing, but they put up some really good numbers. $689 billion company. By the way, eToro is launching tokenized stocks on Ethereum. So you see more and more of these companies embracing the blockchain, and that is good for the overall price of Ethereum. Ethereum right here, 37.58. Wingstop, again, they crushed earnings. They were down year to date, so they needed a good earnings, and they delivered 22%. I haven't ate at Wingstop in a long time, but when I think the last time I remember eating, they were pretty good. So it's a good product. It just had a little bit of a rough couple quarters, and right here it's up 22%, 367. SMCI, is that green? SMCI is back to 60, up 2%. Open Door is up 4%. Open Door did fall below $2 yesterday. Open Door did fall below $2 yesterday. Circle is also up 3%. All right, all the crypto names getting a little bit of love. Where's Coinbase? Coinbase is now up 3%. Coinbase introduced a new social network called Base, and that social network is allowing creators to post something and for that post to then be monetized. Kava, by the way, up 5.6% as well. So if I posted a picture of, I don't know, my water bottle, that water bottle post immediately becomes a monetizable asset that people can bid on. And if you want to pay $50 for a Mitts water bottle picture, you can do that in the integrated ecosystem that is Coinbase's new social network called Base. I don't really think that idea makes a lot of sense. I don't see a lot of momentum in it. I think there's a lot of fundamental flaws, but that's kind of the big thing they touted at their event in Los Angeles last week. And that's also what's helping the stock get some momentum as well. 380 right here on Coinbase. Cheesecake Factory, they crushed earnings as well, up 6%. Up 6%. Oh, yeah, the other reason they're up 3%, thank you for this. JP Morgan announced a partnership with them to expand the crypto wallets. Yeah. To basically allow crypto wallets and bank accounts to be kind of synonymous with each other and interlink between each other, which is probably the other reason why Coinbase is up. Again, Coinbase was at 440 last week, and now it's at 379. So it did have a little bit of a hit since then. Reddit as well was down 5% yesterday. Reddit right here is up a little bit, but that is obviously a bullish partnership with a traditional financial institution that has deep pockets like JP Morgan that wants to start to embrace the crypto ecosystem. Tesla right here at 322, Apple 211, Meta 701, Lending Club still up 24%, Humana up 5.4, Bookings, they had earnings, not too bad, they're up, Grab's a little red at 530, AMD 176, that's red, Novo still down 5%, that's red, BMNR, that's up 2.7, and then Robinhood 104.24, that is green. Kathy Wood continues to buy BMNR. She bought another 477,000 shares yesterday, folks. So she is doubling down on the leverage that she has to Ethereum, and she bought more. Fubo is up 15%. Okay, so this was up 20% yesterday, then it dumped. Now it's back up 15%. So this one's been going back and forth. Marvell's flying. Marvell is flying. What was the news on Marvell? There was no earnings today on Marvell. I don't think there was. Let me see. Marvell to collaborate with Korean AI semiconductor company. Marvell Technology announced a collaboration with Rebellions, an AI semiconductor company based in South Korea, to offer high-performance, energy-efficient AI systems tailored for regionally driven and sovereign-backed AI initiatives across APAC and the Middle East. This collaboration will enable Rebellions to design customer-specific AI accelerators utilizing Marvell custom platforms, leveraging advanced packaging, high speed, and die-to-die interconnects, resulting in tightly integrated end-to-end rack solutions. Okay, there you go. We saw that company from South Korea last week that was pitched as like the NVIDIA competitor. That narrative was like alive for like an hour and then it died out. But South Korea, dude, seems like there's some pretty sophisticated innovation happening in the overall AI landscape. And Marvell decides to be a player now with Rebellions, an AI South Korean company. That's up 10.38% on the day. Do I like Palo Alto at these levels? I don't know enough about their business, but I think Palo Alto for the long term, like you own this stock for the next decade, I don't think you're going to be that upset because them and CrowdStrike are the two big players when it comes to cybersecurity. And their net ARR based on the acquisition they're making is going to dramatically go up, even though the stock is down 7% right here, based on them paying the $25 billion. I don't know if it's all cash or if it's stock, so there might be some dilution involved in this deal. Again, don't know their fundamentals as well as I would to be able to make an investment, but I mean, you're getting a 7% haircut. Cybersecurity is not going away because with AI, you're going to have a lot more phishing attempts. You're going to need cybersecurity at a high level. So I think them and CrowdStrike are still going to be the winners over the next decade. Okay, so S, that ticker symbol S, wow, that's down 1%. So that's another cybersecurity company. That one is down. Reddit right here, 144. CrowdStrike, is that down based on the cybersecurity stuff? 459, that's down 1.2%. Down 1.2%. Sentinel One, that is 1838. That's down 1.6%. So that's another cybersecurity player. Zscaler, where are these guys? Zscaler, they're also in this. They're down 2%. Okay, so the entire cybersecurity sector is going down based on that Palo Alto news. Google right here, 195. Etsy, 64. Lending Club, 16. SoFi is still down 7.3, which is not too bad. And, you know, it's not, you know, the worst case scenario I think that people were expecting. Starbucks right here, 93. Bookings, 5667. And then Grab right here, 532. 532. Dude, I can never say the name of this freaking company. Sentinel. Like, I call them Centennial One, but you guys said that was wrong last time. And so I don't like, I have no idea how to say this stock's name has always been a struggle for me, even though it's not hard to say. But I see it and I see Centennial. That's what I see. Can I just call companies the way I see them? Like, can you guys just give me the benefit of the doubt? Like, that's just like my brain, like some of these, why can't companies just be named like Cheesecake? That's easy. You're not going to mess up Cheesecake. But like Sentinel One or whatever, like it's always, it's always some of these names, bro. So like Open Door, great name, horrible company, you know, probably a pump and dump, but still great name. And no shade to the Open Door people, no shade. I'm just saying, you got Eric Jackson tweeting every day to try to get people to love this stock, even though he sold at $4.97 for his clients. I'm just saying, it's a little weird when you have that type of dynamic going on. Nvidia, is that green? Nvidia is 177. Nvidia, I think, could rip today. Morgan Stanley matters when they come up with a price target upgrade. So when they're saying 200, we saw Nvidia almost get to 180 yesterday. It was at like 179.45. It would be nice to see them get there. Did you ever mispronounce Palantir? No, because Palantir was destiny. You know, that was just kind of like, you know, one could argue it was meant to happen. It was meant to be. I mean, when I really think about it, dude, the butterfly effect, the dominoes that had to fall in place for me to even know what Palantir. Imagine I never discovered Palantir. Imagine it just never happened. Imagine the day I discovered them, I decided to watch Netflix instead. Like, imagine just anything random, or I decided to go for a walk, and it just never crossed my, you know, like imagine. So to me, I can never say their name wrong because, you know, that was always destiny. BMNR, that's up 6%, even though my dad says their name wrong every day. It's hilarious. My sister spells their name wrong every time. BMNR, that's at $34. That's up 6.3. So BMNR, again, yesterday, they announced Stanley Druckenmiller participated in the PIPE, and Tom Lee also announced a $1 billion share buyback. I think the share buyback is a little weird because I feel like most people think they should be buying ETH, but maybe that's going to create a little bit of support on the stock. And that's why that one is up about 6.4%. Altria, this is a Steve favorite. This one also had earnings. Beat on the top and bottom, they're up 3.83%. Altria sells cigarettes, if I'm not wrong. They sell a bunch of other stuff, but cigarettes is one of their leading products. And it seems like people are smoking. So, yeah, Altria is green, beat by 4%, 144 versus 138, and then 6.1 billion versus 5.19. They beat by 18%. EPS is up 10% year over year. Revenue is up 16% year over year. You know, my dad used to sell cigarettes too in his liquor store. He used to sell cigarettes as well. So that is my connection with cigarette. But he's never smoked a cigarette. Neither have I, even though I've always wanted to, because it looks cool, bro. I'm just sorry, it looks cool, but I've never done it. Never smoked a cigarette. Nvidia right here, 177.44. Coinbase 382. Kava's at 90. SMCI 60.2. And then, wow, Wingstop up almost 30%. Almost 30% is green. Mark Benioff sold 605,000 in stock. That's not a lot for Benioff, but Salesforce right here is down about 0.5% as Benioff discloses a bit of a sale. New poll is mispronouncing words on purpose. Dude, I know some of you guys think it's like a little funny bit that I do to keep people entertained. I can promise you from the bottom of my heart, if I could say Centennial 1 correctly, I would say it correct. There's some things I just can't say. I really would like to not mispronounce this stuff. But it is what it is. I just can't do anything about it. Google 196, that's going green. Meta 700, where's Hoodie? Are we holding 105? Again, Hoodie will report today after the bell, 104.82. 104.82 is what you got on Hoodie. Wow, Novo down another 4.4. Novo 51.14. 51.13. And that is green. SoFi, is that falling worse than the 7%? Wow, 8.3. They're really taking her down. They're really taking her down. Okay, hold on. So we do have some price targets on SoFi. Devin Ryan, who will be on my show tomorrow. You guys probably heard of him from Tanner's podcast that he did. Great analyst at JMP Securities. He still doesn't have a price target, but if you look at his report, he said it was the best quarter. It was more than they could ever ask for, essentially was his point. He was like, this was one of the best quarters in history for SoFi, but he didn't give a price target. And I'm going to grill him a little bit tomorrow on the show and be like, bro, where's are you afraid to give them a price target? Why are you not? That's your job. You're an analyst. You got to give a price target. But he didn't give a price target yet. So we still don't know what he's thinking. And then in terms of the updates, William Blair took them from 25 to 30, Jefferies from 20 to 27, Needham from 20 to 25, JP Morgan 16 to 22, Barclays 18 to 21, Bank of America 13 to 15, and then KBW, they've kept them at 13. So a bunch of price targets across the board on SoFi that have been bullish. But obviously, this dilution is why the stock is down about 7.4%. HIMS, are you at 62? Wow, HIMS is at 63. 5% green, baby. Well, I'm happy I didn't sell my HIMS. I'm happy I didn't sell. I didn't double down either. I didn't DCA, but I'm happy I didn't sell. I have 700 shares at 55.85. I don't know why it's running. It might be a little pre-earnings run, although that's a bit premature because earnings is next Monday. So maybe it's running off the Novo stuff. People are buying the compounders versus buying Novo because Novo said the compounders are cutting our margins. That doesn't deny that, HIMS will still have to deal with a bunch of lawsuits and all this stuff, but maybe it's just not going to be that relevant. Looks like she wants 64, folks. She's running 5.7%. That is green. That is green. Yes, Powell will be talking at 2:30 today. We get the announcement at 2 p.m. and then 2:30. We get the actual result, and the result's likely going to be, that they're not going to cut, but they're also not going to hike most likely. So that's what we got from Powell, or we'll be looking at 2:30. Let me pull up the stock draft and see Steve. So Steve owns him. So this should be helping him right now. This was the biggest laggard in his stock draft. So let me pull that up and see how that's performing. Okay, Matt's up 17. Tanner's up 10.7. I'm up 9.3. Steve's up 2.5. What's hurting Steve now is CrowdStrike, Netflix, and Micron. But HIMS is up 6%. What's hurting me the most is Duolingo. What's helping me the most is AMD and Robinhood. AMD is up 40%. Robinhood's up 37%. Palantir's up almost 12%. JP Morgan's up 12%. Grab's up 13%. Apple's up 7%, Visa's flat, Duolingo's down 29%. Chris is down negative 0.59. UNH is hurting on that. Marvell's helping him. He's up 12%. Google is up 11%. And then Novo, he's down 30%. So that's hurting him as well, along with UNH. And then Tanner, Coinbase NVIDIA, TSM, those are the ones that are mainly helping him in the draft. UNH, how's that one doing? Him 63.55. UNH is, wow, below 260. Below 260. My goodness. BMNR is at 34.28. Chris is probably not going to be on the show today, but he did put out a tweet about UNH yesterday. And the TLDR on his tweet is it's going to take more time. It's just going to take more time. So his warning to everyone was, hey, if you thought this was going to be quick, it's not going to be quick unless management is sandbagging so badly. But if they're not sandbagging, but I was talking to a different UNH shareholder yesterday, and he said, I wanted to go into that call expecting management to be like, hey, there's a new sheriff in town, and I don't care what you think about us. We are ready to grow. And like, I don't care what the media says. Like, we're UN freaking H. We were the 15th largest company in America before this stuff happened. We're going to take over. And the tone of the call, I didn't listen to it, but this is what he told me, was, we're sorry for what happened. We didn't mean to hurt everybody. Like, it was a lot of apologizing and playing defense versus playing offense. And then you got that crappy EPS guide, and it just didn't deliver what shareholders expected. And that's why this stock is at 258, down about 1% right here. Robinhood, 105.47, trying to go green. If you are just joining, we got two pieces of macro data this morning, 3% GDP in Q2 versus 2.6% expected. That's good. And then July ADP payrolls, 104,000 versus 77,000 expected. That's also not bad. And then Trump said 25% tariffs on India, which to me is just him saying that because India reported that they're ready to work on a deal. So we're likely going to see that come down over the coming days. And so that's what you got in terms of the macro. So SoFi pumped their stock with good numbers, then immediately diluted. Even if they need to do it for M&A, one could say they have no faith in their ability to maintain 25 or more. Okay, so I could understand how someone feels like that. However, one thing that is important to remember is Noto has $100 million waiting for him in June of 2026 if the stock is above 25. So completely understand the sentiment that they pumped it on earnings, gave you the good numbers, and then diluted right after the numbers were good. But it's not like everyone got diluted and Noto didn't, right? For Noto to get his PSUs, he needs to get this above 25. Now, for the people saying it'll get above 25 in the next couple months and like it's ready to break out, that's where the dilution really hurts. But overall, I think if your time horizon is longer, the stock will be above 25 eventually and stay above 25 because Noto has this $100 million incentive. It's just in the short term, they are using the liquidity of shareholders to dilute and do what they need to do to grow. So that's what you got on SoFi, $20.85 again, basically at the dilution price. It's really not breaking that much below that. So at least that is an encouraging sign for everyone who's heavy on this one. SMCI 60.81, that's up 3.75%. Cheesecake up 5%. Kava's up 4%. Circle is up 3%. Reddit's up 1.4%. Visa's up a little bit. Tesla's up 3.21%. And then Meta is at 701.84. Elon said some stuff yesterday about researchers versus engineers, a little bit of a semantic argument that he was talking about. So he was describing who we have in XAI, and he wrote, the false nomenclature of researcher and engineer, which is a thinly masked way of describing a two-tier engineering system, is being deleted from XAI today. There are only engineers. Researcher is a relic term from academia. SpaceX does more meaningful cutting-edge research on the advancement of rockets and satellites than all the academic university labs on Earth combined, but we don't use the pretentious, low accountability term of researcher. We use engineer. So you got Elon kind of throwing a little bit of shade at Meta because Meta has been, naming all their chief research officers and hiring all these quote-unquote researchers from OpenAI saying, hey, we are only hiring engineers, even if they're relatively the same thing. Now, the one thing I'll give Elon on when it comes to XAI is, I don't know about you guys, but I have seen not a single person who left XAI to join Meta. I've seen almost everyone leave OpenAI to join Meta, at least everyone that's relevant and that matters. So there is a little bit of truth to the culture that Elon's building at XAI is so sophisticated. And trust me, we would all know if someone left XAI to Meta because it would be breaking news, right? The media would go crazy if someone left Elon to pick Zucks because they have a chance to pick on Elon. But no one's left. And so it kind of goes to show maybe Elon's building AI the right way. And that's what's creating momentum. Robinhood right here, 105.68. That is green. Where is Himmy Hims? Are we at 64? We are at 64 on the dot, folks. Up 6%. I mean, that's green. That is indeed green. 64.70. Wow, dude, she's running. Absolutely running. Resistance for 65. Let me check. Resistance for 65. Let me check. Hymns right here. Let's pull it up. Does anyone have an idea why it's running, or is it just this no? I think it's just a Novo thing, right? That could be the only logic for why it's running. Oklo, is that running? Oklo, nuclear energy has been on a tear. Wow, that's up 7%. I guess we got some nuclear catalyst this morning that has also helped. Oklo. Dude, Oklo went from 6 to freaking 70 in 7 months. I mean, and I knew about Oklo at 6. I told you guys the story. I was having dinner, or not dinner. I was having coffee with someone in Palo Alto. They told me that they got freaking private shares of Oklo at $4 in 2018. The stock, the price hadn't moved since 2024, 2025 for 7 years. And he said, I have a bunch of these shares, and I'm just waiting for some headline on nuclear to really allow them to gain momentum. And now the thing's 76. I was like, I literally had someone tell me, hey, this is a nuclear play. You should look at it. And I didn't do anything. 65 has 600 shares waiting, folks. 600 shares for HIMS. Did it break through 65 already? No, 600 shares. There's like no resistance at 65. No resistance at 65. Marvell, again, that partnership with a South Korean company that's doing great. $84 on the day. That is up 10%. Palo Alto is dumping because they acquired a company, and that's why their stock is going down. Oklo, I don't see the headline. I'll see if there's anything else going on there. But in general, the executive orders on nuclear has been rather bullish. No headlines. A lot of good option flow. I'm seeing for calls, but no headline on Oklo. That stock is at now 75. SMCI, that one continuing to get some love. 61.20, that's up 4.3. And then Bitmine 4.8. Where is SBET? SBET's at 2018, that's up 5% as well. All right, so the Ethereum treasuries are having a better day than before. Novo, still a crappy day, like it has had from yesterday. Reddit, kind of flat. Coinbase up a little bit. Circle's up 3%. The crypto names doing well. Tessie, 321. And then Meta, 700. I think everything's rather calm and relaxed. Where's the S&P? We're probably green, but flat. We are literally flat, even though we're green, because everyone's waiting for J-Powell. Everyone is waiting for J-Powell. Bank of America, not Bank of America, Bank of Canada held rates at 2.75. I didn't even know they had a decision today. It looks like they did. So Bank of Canada not cutting and keeping it 2. Now they've cut already a couple times. Yeah, 2.75. There you go. Bank of Canada 2.75. So that one stays steady. And that one not moving from there. ETH treasuries are doing better than ETH the asset. Yeah. I mean, now granted, a lot of them fell over the past couple of days, but at least on a intraday basis today, they are doing better. I have 1,000 shares of SMR at 8. It's been an amazing bet. Well, nuclear has been, I mean, that was one sector. A lot of people were bullish AI and semiconductors and crypto this year. Nuclear is what I think a lot of people missed. At least I missed it. Oklo, SMR, Nano Nuclear. You bought those in January. You're very happy. You are very happy. Yes, Teradyne, that company is up 14% of the day. They had a great earnings yesterday. They beat on the top and the bottom, $16 billion company. So that is green. Again, we're going to get the aggregate number of earnings beats by the end of this week. I think about 70% of the S&P 500 will be done reporting by the end of this week. So far, it's a 6% beat across the board, 6.7%. And if that continues after Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple, then that will be very important. Also, Freshworks, which I thought was a Whole Foods competitor. Apparently, it's a SaaS company. They had a good earnings, but their stock is flat right now, $13.89 on Freshworks. Game is flying. That's another ETH treasury. That is green as well, 7.2%. 7.2%. Microsoft right here at 511. I think there was some Microsoft collaboration with Marvell, which also could be boosting the stock and creating some momentum. But the main reason I think it's running is based on the news in South Korea as they're participating. Well, this could also be running. Let me just read this headline right here, because this could also be a pretty good reason. Microsoft's in-house chip makers keep hitting bumps. The Baraga launch has slipped to 2026 due to design challenges and internal pressure, with performance expected to trail NVIDIA's Blackwell. But the focus is now the Maya 300, which is co-designed with Marvell, and that's where their real bets seem to be. This is from The Information. and this came out yesterday. So basically the information is reporting that Microsoft is starting to diversify a little bit from some of their other in-house chip efforts and shift to Marvell. That, along with the South Korean collaboration, I mean, that's enough of a bull case to get the street excited about Marvell, which is a major player in the semiconductor space. That's up 10%. Micron right now, that stock up at 113. That's up 1.2. Dell, is that moving with SMCI? Dell is up 0.5%. SMCI moving a little faster. Yeah, dude, I thought it was a Whole Foods competitor. I thought Freshworks. Like, you don't tell me you don't think that sounds like a restaurant, or like Sweet Green or something. It's like SaaS, IT infrastructure. I'm like, okay, I guess so. UNH recovering a little bit. SoFi still down 7, and then BitMine, that's at 5.9% up on the day. We got Kevin Hassett live on CNBC, likely talking about the India trade deal and overall GDP growth. Let's see if we can get some stuff out of him, and then we'll keep going from there.
Held up for a little bit. And so that means if you don't have a new home, you're not buying a washer machine. If you're not really running out to build the homes, then you're not buying Stanley products, where that's pretty much everything you need to build a house. And so we expect all that stuff is going to lift off now with the big, beautiful bill. In fact, it's lifting off already.
All right, so those of us who started out, we know that the rates were high, but we were able to get a teaser rate. Right now, because of where the rates are, you can't get that teaser rate. Is there any way to make it so that we get a teaser rate to get people, get this housing market moving without cutting rates?
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, the Fed is meeting this week. I think they're very data dependent. We at the White House 100% respect their independence, but we also like to respect their analysis. If you look at the numbers, then absolutely we're at core today is at 2.1, and we've got supply side stuff which drives down prices. And so we expect that the Fed will catch up to the data soon, and that's going to be a really big positive story for homeowners.
And it's all right. We're going to get home sales in 2 minutes, folks. Home sales in 2 minutes. We're going to see mortgage applications, by the way, came in a lot worse than expected. Street thought they would come in at negative 0.5. They came in at negative 3.8%. MBA mortgage applications for the month of July, or for the month of June. So negative 3.8%, they came in red. So we're going to see what they come in terms of actual home sales in about 1 minute. Sato, thank you for the super chat. Amit, please shout out my girlfriend Mickey watching you at work. Shout out to Sato's girlfriend Mickey. Thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for keeping up with the stream. And hopefully you and the boyfriend get to watch together. That's always pretty cool, dude. When you guys tell me like you're watching it with your girl, or she's in the background and she's watching it and she's listening to just like all of us talk about stocks. It's always super cool when like couples watch the show together. So, and I'm going to be seeing a lot of you couples in the Miami meetup. Again, if you sign up on the forum, check your email. There's some steps you have to fill out. I will be re-releasing the forum probably tomorrow for people to sign up. But if you have not signed up, if you have not checked your email, make sure you check it. A lot of couples I saw from people who signed up are coming to the Miami event. So we should be excited. Hims right here, 64.83. Hims. Wow, we hit 65 on Hims. There you go. Back to 65. Back to 65 on Hims. What an incredible day. It's up almost 20% in the past 3 days. Hims is green. New home sales. Let's see what we got. All right. It's red. Street thought it would be 0.3%. We came in at negative 0.8%. Negative 0.8% on pending home sales for the month of June. We're going to get year over year in a second, but that one did come in lower. I mean, that's not a surprise. We all knew home sales were going to be bad. I don't think the market cares that much, but obviously home sales are affected by the lack of rate cuts that we're seeing. S&P basically unchanged at 635. Yeah, last month it was 1.8%. Estimated was 0.2. We came in at negative 0.8. So, not the worst thing in the world, but I mean, I just don't think it's a surprise. It's bad, but it's like no one thinks it's a surprise because we know that we know that, I'm thinking of SoFi because of refinancing houses. We know that the housing market is frozen, which should be bullish for SoFi when the housing market unfreezes. The question is just when that happens. Hims right here is not holding 65. It cracked above it twice. It got rejected at 65.14. So now we got to see if it can hold on to those levels. Yeah, not a surprise yet. It's far off from the low estimates, but this one's just not something that's going to change the market that deeply. Okay, him 64.54. The Singapore meetup has not happened yet. 2026. We will be doing Singapore. And hopefully the UK and Germany and all that stuff. And we'll try to do that. All right, home sales. Let's get some of this data and some coverage on it. And then we'll keep going from there.
Well, David, pending home sales in June dropped 0.8% from May, and we're down 2.8% from June of last year. That's basically in line with expectations, just a teensy bit lower. These counts are based on signed contracts for existing homes. So people out shopping in June when the average rate on the 30-year fix dipped slightly and briefly. The home builders noted that in recent earnings, that this brought in more buyers. Of course, the builders also buy down rates. Home sellers do not, and rates popped back up again in July. Now, sales were down despite a nearly 29% gain in active listings, according to Realtor.com. Some of that gain is because homes are just sitting and not selling. There was actually a pullback in new listings in June. Regionally, sales dropped everywhere except in the Northeast. Strange, because home price growth has been strongest in the Northeast. And just a note, mortgage applications to buy a home dropped last week and are down 5% over the past 4 weeks. Sarah?
Okay, Diana, thank you very much. Big story today is the Fed this afternoon after the economic data that we got today. So GDP comes out better than expected, 3%, complete reversal of the first quarter where it's all trade distorted. And this one too, you know, exports subtract from GDP. There was everyone was loading up in the first quarter and they fell this quarter. And that's why GDP was better. Overall consumption at 1.4, good. That's the strength of the consumer, but tamer than what we're used to. What I really pulled out of this, David, because I think this is going to be the debate inside the Fed right now and in the markets, is how are the tariffs impacting inflation? So we got a PCE, a core PCE number inside this GDP print that showed 2.5%. It was a little hotter than expected, but it's still, as you can see, a step down from where we were.
3.5% in the first quarter.
Correct, right? the quarter before. And we'll get a more precise reading tomorrow with the June PCE number. Okay. So the monthly data, this was the quarterly data. But we're watching it because this is the debate inside the Fed. This is why we might see two dissenters with Bowman and with Waller, who have said they've been in favor of a cut as soon as today, because they feel, first of all, that inflation's not as bad as expected. And if we do see it, it's going to be a one-off, where I think more people on the committee, including the Fed chair, are worried about tariffs being more inflationary. And jury's still out. I mean, so far so good, but we don't know. We're starting to hear from companies.
We have a similar conversation and have had it for quite some time now. When are we going to know, Sarah?
Well,
when do we think a sufficient amount of time has passed that the risk has gone down, that prices will go up?
I think what we've heard from the Fed chair is that we'll know more in August, I think, as we get to September, because the market is pricing in a September cut. So by August, if inflation...
I don't know if that makes sense, dude. I really don't think there's going to be that much of a difference from right now to August. That's the one thing I do agree with for a lot of the people that are saying, Powell, what the hell are you doing? It's like, dude, there's not a big difference between July and September. There's just not. So the idea that we're going to wait for another month of data, it's like, all right, I guess, but it doesn't seem like there's something crazy in the next 6 weeks that's going to happen that's going to decide if we cut or not. So 25 bips is not going to end the world. It's not crazy to imagine that we could do it right now and then move forward in September. And then we don't have to do it in September. We could pause, but the idea that we have to wait, it doesn't seem to make that much sense.
We're still look tame. It would be a much higher likelihood that they will go in September. But we're starting to learn. Look, Adidas was out today, for instance. Yes, German company, but footwear very exposed to tariffs, because we know that footwear and apparel, they're made in Vietnam and China. So what they say is the latest indications of tariffs will directly increase the cost of our products for the U.S. with up to 200 million euros in cost for the rest of the year. We also do not know what the indirect impact on consumer demand will be should all these tariffs cause major inflation. They did talk about price increases.
Did they? I mean, because again, the question is, will they just take the hit in their own margin, or will they pass it along?
They talked about...
Are Adidas sneakers going to become more expensive?
Probably. We just don't know how much. And it'll probably be some combination of them eating it and also passing it along. Interestingly, they maintain guidance, so they're not looking at anything. They said that they would have raised guidance given this. I mean, they saw double-digit growth.
Right.
So the prudent thing to do was to keep guidance. Mondelez, we're going to talk to the CEO next hour, a company that makes Nabisco crackers and Oreos. We have announced incremental pricing that is going to take effect in a few weeks in North America. I won't elaborate much, but we are clearly at a point in time where we see inflation going
But
up.
that's not really.
All right, so I didn't see that quote. Again, I'm going to try to aggregate as many quotes as I can from some of these companies that are talking about this stuff, but there are different brands that are out there saying, hey, we do have to raise some of these prices.
Related to tariffs.
I mean,
Is it?
incremental pricing, yeah.
Really? I mean, isn't it input costs?
Inflation,
Yeah.
input costs. Yes, food is more local.
Okay.
But look, there's definitely.
And that quote didn't elaborate, and that's missing the context. Because if it's just incremental input costs for food going higher, then you can't say it's a tariff thing. But if the incremental costs are not that incremental, there's kind of like a sudden price shock because of tariffs, then maybe it has to do with tariffs. So we got to get a lot more context from some of these CEOs, and I got to go through a lot of these transcripts over the weekend. But so far, you've seen American Airlines, you've seen a couple of these companies, UPS, talk about the tariffs, but it's not like every other company saying tariffs are an issue for them.
An inflationary impact. They were not talking about pricing increases a few quarters ago because they just didn't have that pressure. Whirlpool, we largely already implemented the necessary pricing action, what needed to be done to offset the tariffs. We know they cut their dividend as well. So I think it's a combination of price increases, feeling it on the bottom line, sharing the burden with suppliers, the suppliers overseas paying the tariffs, and companies are adapting, but it doesn't really give us a read on what it means for overall inflation.
Do you think that?
And that's going to take some time. That's going to take some time for us to get a better read of what's going on. SoFi getting a little bit of a pump, folks. 21.33. That's up almost $1 from the lows. So maybe you got buyers stepping in saying, hey, dilution's not that big of a deal. And that could be the reason. Or there's a headline. I don't see any news across my screen, but it might be more so just people saying it's not that big of a deal for dilution. So that's what we got on SoFi, 21.40. I mean, if that can make a run back to 22, that'll be very exciting. And then maybe it doesn't have to go back to 25 tomorrow, but like holding above 22 would not be too bad. S&P still flat, waiting for JPOW. HIMS rejected at 65, holding 64. Hoodie 106, up 2.7. Dude, I'm definitely a little nervous today. I'm a little nervous. I'm not really nervous for not really nervous for the company. I'm just nervous because the stocks had an incredible run. And it's like, there hasn't been a quarter where Hood has been up 3x in 3 months and then they've had to report earnings. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure on them. And I think they will deliver. I don't know how the market's going to take it, but I think they're going to give us a pretty amazing quarter. And then the question is just how good is it for the market to be excited about future growth? But Robinhood 106.12, that's up 2.7 again. Even holding this range to me is a win. And going into the end of the year, I do see it closer to 120, especially if we get the S&P. If we don't get the S&P, it is what it is. But I think 120 is not crazy if they can keep putting up the growth. NVIDIA right here, 178, that's up 2%. NVIDIA trying to get back to 180. Fubo, that's up 11. Reddit's up 0.5%. Cheesecake up 4. Kava's up 2. Circle's up 5. Open Doors lost most of its pump, but it's up 0.5. And then Marvell was up 10. That one is up now 9 on the day. So there you go. Grab, where is Grab? Again, Grab, they've been toying with it after hours every single day. I have no idea what to expect on this. I really don't see a drop below 5. I just think it becomes too undervalued with the cash they have on hand. But I don't know if we see a breakout. It's $6. I know a lot of the options market is betting that there's going to be a big breakout here after this earnings, but maybe there's not, right? The thing about Grab is I've come to such peace with my conviction. There's certain moments as a shareholder where you're like, no, I just believe in it. And I really don't care what anyone says because of your own due diligence. And so if it drops, it drops. If there's not a thesis breaker, then I buy more. And if it goes up, then great. I'm not planning to sell. So I would like it to make a move because it would be nice. There's a lot of excitement on the stock. It was kind of dead money for the first 6 months. Now people are excited. The technicals look good. Got a lot of people producing DD every day because they're really falling in love with the story. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. And ultimately, this stuff takes time to play out. I just think if there was a quarter where they could break out, realistically, I think that's Q3. I don't think that's Q2. But if Grab wanted to be aggressive and show some of the earnings momentum, really start to propel, maybe it's this quarter. And we're going to ultimately see. Also, the institutions, dude, William Blair bought another 8 million shares yesterday. They increased their position by 70%. So the toots are continuing to load. And I would say they're just like thinking, all right, this is consolidation phase. We are trying to gobble up as much as we can. And eventually, when we see the earnings growth, we know that this one is going to compound over the next decade. SMCI right here, that's up 4%. HIMS right here up 7. Oklo up 6. BMNR up 8. BMNR, nice little recovery. Getting some green. Tom Lee did tweet yesterday that Ethereum is going to be the most important macro trade of the decade. So he continues to be pretty damn bullish on what we have for Ethereum. Arista, is that running? A-Lab, that is up 8.4%. Or Astera. Arista's ANET. Astera, that's up 8.3. I don't think there's a headline there, but that's green. So that one's getting some love. Lemonade, we did a deep dive on Lemonade. Lemonade's down. I don't know why it was at 40 for like the past month. I just don't like the thesis, dude. It's AI insurance. I don't think that's super exciting. SoFi 2135, and I just think there's other opportunities. I don't think it's a bad company. I just genuinely am not that excited about AI insurance. It's funny. I was in a group chat, and 2 of my friends were loading up on Lemonade. They might be listening in the chat. And yesterday they said we sold our Lemonade, and we're buying Nebius. And I'm like, I kind of expected this to happen because it's Lemonade. Like, how much can you analyze on AI insurance? Like, it's just not an exciting. Even if the opportunity feels undervalued, it's like you buy it and you just hold it and you just assume they'll execute. But there's not something that interesting there. Nebius right here up 1.6. And so, I don't know. They got to get profitable. They got to grow top line 30%. They got to really put up the right numbers. I think they'll be fine long term. It's just, I think there's so many other opportunities besides Lemonade. And that is it. Jem, thank you for the 7 super chat. How about arranging an interview with the Grab CEO when you're in Singapore next year? I would love to interview Anthony Tan. I think his story is just phenomenal. Again, we played a video last night about how he thinks about the overall business. That'd be really cool. I mean, if I'm in Singapore, who knows? Maybe there'll be a shot, but it would be very cool to talk to him. Webull right here, down below 14. That's still up 1.72%. S&P 635. That one is still flat. What else do we have here? Palantir. Okay, so again, we got that up. Okay, let's read the full upgrade because we didn't get to read it because it was right before the bell. 158.79. So Loop Capital again. Dude, who would have thought when this thing was $6 and all of us were begging for coverage that now the street would be chasing this stock via their price targets? Who would have thought 3 years from 2022 that would happen? But that's what we're seeing, and maybe it is for a good reason. Loop Capital says, based on our checks, we expect Palantir to deliver another beat and raise with a revenue outperformance in line with exceeding the 5-quarter average upside of 4.3% above the midpoint of guidance. Basically, they're anticipating 40% growth. That's what it reads like. Additionally, we anticipate guidance to increase beyond the past beyond the past 4 quarters of 2.3%. The hard part is to guess whether that will be enough to satisfy investors who have pushed the stock straight up and to the right, rising 106% year to date and 26% since the first quarter's earnings release, which is the kind of chart that gives us pause buying ahead of the print. Reasonable take. They're like, hey, we think Palantir is going to put up amazing numbers. We don't know if Wall Street will think that's enough given the stock is up so much. Very reasonable for Loop Capital to say that. The company's eye-popping valuation is supported by the combination of demonstrated AI leadership, scarcity value as one of the few, or scarcity value. See, I caught myself there. Scarcity value is one of the few pure play AI software stocks and category leading margins. Market sentiment around AI names remains highly favorable, and Palantir benefits from its unique position at the intersection of artificial intelligence and enterprise software. The company continues to secure significant commercial contracts as pilot programs scale into full production, with AI use cases expanding exponentially across industries. That's what the street cares about when they're looking for top-line revenue growth, to see if that plays out. Additionally, Palantir's established government footprint and strong ties with senior members of the Trump administration are expected to bolster growth in the federal business, especially as efforts to modernize U.S. government operations and implement strategic policies such as tax reform and defense initiatives advance. Together, these factors have driven a best-in-class revenue growth and margins exemplified by a Rule of 81 score in first quarter 2025, 68 score in 2024, solidifying its position as an AI leader. And then they simply say, over the next decade, we think there's going to be a cycle similar to the PC revolution or cloud computing that Palantir will be at the center at. There you go. Bullish. They are bullish. Palantir right here. 158.84 on the day. How will the dollar affect Grab? Okay, so a low dollar is actually good for Grab. However, because Grab operates in so many different countries, some of those countries and the way they manipulate their currencies is not necessarily going to be the best thing for Grab. So there's going to be a little bit of an offset. So I expect no meaningful like impact from the dollar going down for Grab. Maybe there is something there that is a tailwind, but it might not be the biggest tailwind. Realistically, dude, they've got to increase guidance. And because of their history, they usually do that in Q3. They don't do it in Q2. So that's why I'm saying I think Q3 is the quarter where it really gets a surge, because I expect a pretty heavy increase. I think they sandbagged really heavily in Q1 and or Q4 2024. And so this quarter they might just not increase, and then maybe the stock's flat. But that's what's going to move this, not the currency exchange rates on the dollar. S&P 635, HIMS trying to get back to 65, BMNR now up 7%, and then UNH slightly up about 1% on the day. GE Veranova, is that up? That is up 3%. That is green. What if Palantir brings in $1.3 billion in revenue this quarter? Well, the street's expecting 930. I don't think they're going to have a $400 million beat. If they do, there's this thing called the moon, and we are probably going to be going to it if that's what they do. I don't want to put that pressure on them, though. I don't expect them to do that. But if they did, like, I think that $1 billion quarter is probably in Q3, Q4, not this quarter. But honestly, no, I could see $1 billion this quarter. Now, 1.3 is a little bit aggressive, but they're only guiding for 930. I mean, a $70 million beat, not crazy. So I could see $1 billion, and I think the street would be very happy with that $1 billion, because then they would be expected to produce $1 billion quarter every quarter. There would never be a quarter where they don't have $1 billion. As a SaaS company, sticky revenues, once you get that $1 billion, you should always hit at least $1 billion per quarter. So that would be exciting, but we're going to have to see if they get there. I will not be streaming Grab, unfortunately, guys. I really wish I could. I'm literally not going to be able to, but we'll be talking about it a lot tomorrow. I just can't stream. I'm just not going to be at home to be able to stream it. What's your average on HIMS? 55.85. 55.85. I'm just going to show you guys the HIMS position, because you guys think I hate HIMS so much that I sold it. This is the position. There you go. Is it close enough for everybody? I have not sold my HIMS. I have it. 700 shares. It's up 15%, 55.85. Obviously, I scratched out portfolio diversity because I would like to keep the overall portfolio size private. But for everyone thinking I'm out of HIMS, I will tell you guys, if I sell HIMS, I will take whatever heat you guys want to give me for selling HIMS if I decide to go put it into another stock. Which, have I thought about? Yeah, of course, I've thought about it, because I'm like, look, I like it. I don't love it. But also, I'm like, HIMS is cheap. It's a $12 billion market cap. Like, I can't say it's not cheap. Have I also thought about, if I sell it, what you guys are going to do to me in the chat? Yes, I thought about that as well. That has gone into the factoring of decisions. So you can call that peer pressure if you want to. But you guys got me into it, so it's only right that you keep the pressure on to hold it. But I've not sold, and thankfully it's up now. So look, HIMS is great. I'm just like, I'm just not as excited. Like, some of you guys are like obsessed with it. I think there's a thesis, and I think it's cheap. When you look at Rocket Lab's multiple, and then you look at HIMS, you're like, dude, HIMS should be almost like literally 100. That whole meme of HIMS to 100, it's not a meme. Like, fair value, one could argue, is anywhere from 75 to 100, just based on some of the multiples that a lot of these other companies are getting that are not growing as much as HIMS and that aren't profitable. But it doesn't excite me, you know? It doesn't, like, it's not the thing that makes me so excited. But I didn't sell even through the dip, because I still felt at 40. That was kind of stupid, just off the Novo stuff. And, you know, now it's getting rewarded. So HIMS right there is 65.12. That's up 8% on the day. And Novo continues to get hit. Wow, 50.96, back to 50. It was at 50 yesterday in the pre-markets, bumped to 55, stayed there the whole day. And now it's back to 50. Now it's back to 50. Okay, Kraken. So Kraken's going public at a $15 billion valuation, and they have $450 million in revenue and $40 billion in assets. So that means that Kraken's going public at 37 times sales. That's a little aggressive. Actually, no, hold on. No, yeah, it's not 400 per quarter. It's 400 for the year. Okay, so if it's 450 for the year, that's 37 times sales. That I would say that is a bit of an aggressive multiple. SoFi volume right here, 72 million at 2140. I would not be buying that IPO. I think that IPO can pump, but that is not necessarily an exciting valuation to me. 40 times sales. They have 40 billion under custody. The truth be told, I don't know anything about Kraken other than they're a crypto platform, so I'm sure there's some nuance to their thesis. I got to read their S1. But that seems a little like, hey, public markets are frothy. We're going to take advantage of liquidity. And given it's a crypto name, you know the crypto bros are going to run it up. It's not like Figma. Figma legitimately, to me, it could be undervalued given where it's trading at a $16 billion market cap. The fact that it's trading below, or the IPO is underwritten below the acquisition price from Adobe, also tells me, they're expecting a lot of momentum, but they're also not trying to be egregious at like a 30, 40, $50 billion valuation, even though I think it'll reach that tomorrow when they go public. I have asked for an allocation of shares from Robinhood. I doubt I'm going to get any, but if they give it to me, great. If they don't give it to me, it's whatever. But the Kraken IPO in general sounds a bit expensive. It sounds a bit expensive. I wonder what the ticker is going to be on Kraken, though. 412 million of... Oh, hold on. This changes. Cactus, can you confirm this? Is that 412 million in Q2 or 400 million for the year? Because that changes the equation. If it's 412 in Q2, so if we just do that on a trailing 12 months, now that's much more reasonable. That's almost 2 billion a year in revenue, which is 8 times sales, not 37 times. Q2, okay, so that's different. That actually is way more reasonable. That is much more reasonable for Kraken. If they're doing 1.6 billion in revenue, that is not crazy expensive. I was surprised. I was like 400 million. Like, they're supposed to be a big exchange. That just seems weird. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm excited. Valuation kind of changed immediately. It can change your mind immediately from 37 times sales to 8 times sales. Yeah. Now I want an allocation. Now I'd be willing to bid for that, because that seems cheap, especially given how big they are in the overall crypto ecosystem. Grab right here at 530. Marvell 84.75. Is Hoodie trying to make a run? Hoodie is at 106.55. That's up. That's up 3%. Yeah, Kraken is like a household name for the crypto bros. That's why when I heard 400 million, I was like, what? That seems like they're just trying to juice the public markets if they're going to public at 16 billion. But if they're doing 1.6, that's a much more reasonable valuation and growth multiple that they're being priced at. Okay, AST I think did some dilution as well after hours yesterday. ASTS, that's up 2.8%. They already announced the dilution last week, the 500 million convertible note. I think they executed about 125 million of it yesterday, if I'm not wrong. So that one's up 2.8%, but they still are doing some dilution as well. Rocket Lab, that's up 3. That's getting some green. And then Fubo, that's up 20. Fubo is up 20. There you go. So Fubo, again, yesterday it got the pump and then kind of died off. And now today it's getting some momentum. Also, another Peter Thiel company is going public called Bullish. It's like a crypto bank type of product, BLSH. I think it's also a brokerage. I don't know the valuation on that, but that one's going public as well. Literally, the name is called Bullish. And so we're going to see what that looks like later throughout the year when they go public. Any thoughts on VG? Well, not really. However, Trump did no updated thoughts from VG since the Iran-Iraq war, Iran-Israel, which led to gas prices going up, and then they came back down. That's why VG pumped to 19, then it came back down. However, Trump said, hey, Russia tariffs next week is what he's thinking about, which is why you got Brent above 72. Now, is he actually going to tariff Russia or sanction Russia that aggressively? Who knows? But that is why some of the oil names got a little bit of a pump as well. EU's buying U.S. gas. Yeah, that should be good for a lot of the natural gas players. And we saw a little bit of a pump yesterday. Schneer, obviously a main beneficiary of that as well. LNG, that's now down on the day. But the Russia stuff is really what got oil to go higher yesterday. China Commerce Minister meets executives from Boeing and Apple. All right, Boeing and Apple trying to figure out what to do to navigate China. Speaking of Apple, you got JP Morgan coming out today on Apple, or sorry, Jeffries, and they said, hey, we think the iPhone 18 is going to have a price hike, and that could be a potential tailwind for Apple to be able to navigate some of the tariffs. I should be a buyer for the iPhone 18 because I have an iPhone 15, so it's 3 years. It's time to upgrade. But I don't know if I will because, again, although I can tell the battery of my iPhone is starting to get really bad, I don't know if it's enough to upgrade it for. So I don't know. I don't know if this super cycle of upgrades is actually going to play out. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But we'll see. Oh, iPhone 17 comes out this year? Okay, well, Jeffrey said iPhone 18. So probably a year and a half from now, they're expecting the price hike to take place on Apple. 6530 on Hims. Dude, she got to 72 earlier this year. I mean, maybe it makes a run for it. That would be exciting. By the way, speaking of AI and CapEx, as we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, take a look at this chart. U.S. annual electricity demand since 1990. Folks, it's at an all-time high. When Elon talks about how we need to invest in energy and we need to really look at what China's doing versus what we're doing when it comes to data center demand, yeah, it's very important. I was texting a friend yesterday who lives in Chicago, and she said, let me just read the text. She said that the Midwest is becoming a hot place for data centers. My parents' home, there's a street behind us with 3 data centers that were built within the past 6 months, all of them competitors, all of them across from each other. And the big, beautiful bill, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, takes away zoning restrictions for the next decade for companies that are building data centers because the administration is trying to enforce the advancement of AI in this country. And for AI, you need data centers. So it is pretty incredible, and it doesn't seem like that's slowing down anytime soon. And then Zucks said he wants to create a 5 gigawatt data center the size of Manhattan the other day. I mean, like, this is happening. And this is not going away anytime soon. Pounce right here, 158.64. GE Veranova, that's up. Hims right here, 65.50. Robinhood, 106.40. That is green. And then BMNR, are we getting a bit more of a run? 8%, 34.75. BMNR getting some green. Getting some green. Yes, Palo Alto will probably have to dilute if they're acquiring, for the acquisition of Cyber, because they have $3 billion cash. It's a $25 billion acquisition. But again, dude, like Palo Alto is a mature company. They're not growing 30% anymore. CrowdStrike's growing around 25, 30%. Palo Alto's growing like 15%. So they need to acquire to be able to grow. And I think it's healthy for cybersecurity to consolidate. So like when a stock falls on an acquisition, like especially if they're the ones buying, it's temporary, because it's like, okay, the market realizes they're going to be spending a lot of money, but if that acquisition is value accretive, eventually the market doesn't care. And that's hopefully what's going to happen with Sofi. Sofi now 21.50, high of day, 2036 to 21.50, only down 4% now after being down 7% in the pre-markets. Yeah, we talked about Zucks' letter. We watched his video on superintelligence. It looks like he's ready to spend a lot of money. PayPal. Where is PayPal, dude? That one yesterday. Wow, it's still down. I don't know, dude. I don't know what's going on with PayPal. I mean, they beat on the top and the bottom. I guess guidance wasn't the best, and the street's just like, no, we don't want it. They are not seeing the narrative to be as aggressive as it is for some of these other names in the financial space. Porsche, by the way, they had earnings and they cut their profit outlook for this year. It's for the third time. They slashed this return on sales target to 5 to 7%, down from 6.5 to 8.5% after taking a 400 million euro hit from U.S. import tariffs. Operating profit dropped 67%. The CEO said, this is not a storm that will pass. This is not a storm that will pass. So maybe there's internal problems inside of Porsche, but you do have the CEO just like easily blaming the tariffs and saying, hey, it's not our fault, it's the tariffs. But ultimately, we're going to have to see what happens with that going into the end of the year. Now, Porsche stock is down 14% year to date. I don't think you can easily buy this Yeah, it's OTC. So on Robinhood, you can't buy this. Over the past year, it's down 32%. Past 5 years, down 51%. Wow, they went public in 2022. I didn't know that. Okay, so it's down 50% all time. So that one has not been the best performer when it comes to stocks. Does anyone own a Porsche? Isn't the main one called like a 911 or something? I've never deeply looked into it because I don't care that much about cars. Although I really want a Cybertruck, dude. I'm not going to buy one because there's no need to buy a Cybertruck if I have a Model Y, but Cybertruck, every time I see it on the streets in New Jersey, I'm like, dude, that just looks so cool. It'd be so freaking cool to drive one. I drove a Jason's before, and he ended up not buying it. He was leasing it, but I drove it in California. Yeah, 911. Porsches call it a 911. See, I can't imagine paying freaking, like the Cybertruck's what, 70 grand? Realistically, 85 if you get everything. Like if I was going to pay 85 grand for a car, it would have to be a Cybertruck because I could not pay more than that or anywhere near that for a car. For like a Lambo or something. Like it's not in me to do that. Robinhood right here, 106.70, SoFi 21.46, Pound tier 158, Grab 5.31, and then Dell 134.39 as well. Dude, why are you guys hating on the Cybertruck? Everyone says it looks ugly. I like how it looks, especially the custom colors. Like Rango also. Rango's in the chat. He drove me in a Cybertruck. He came with me to the interview at Figure. He picked me up in California in February. And his Cybertruck, we FSD'd to Figure's headquarters for like freaking an hour. Yeah, there he is. I love the Cybertruck. I think it looks nice. Now, the sales have been disgusting. I mean, like they just absolutely Oh, by the way, Tesla, the VP of engineering confirmed yesterday, or I think it was 2 days ago, I forgot to cover it, that they are working on a compact model for the Cybertruck, aka a Cybertruck that is like smaller, I guess, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that's going to help with the sales, but I think I like it. I think it's cool. I like the design, even though most people don't. Him's right there, 6511. 6511. Damn, all of you guys are saying, all right, we're going to do a poll. Why does everyone... I mean, it makes sense that all of you are saying it's ugly because the sales kind of reflect the ethos of people's attitude against this truck. But I think a minority of people, like myself, I like it. All right, Cybertruck, ugly, sexy. What do you guys think? Here's the poll. Tesla 321. Tessie 321. It looks stupid. Okay, it does look kind of stupid. I'm not going to lie. But I like it, dude. I don't know why I like the design of it. It's a tin garbage can. That's why they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's fair. Okay, it's a little bit closer. 60-40, ugly is what we have. It looks like a PlayStation truck. I like it, dude. I feel like it's cool, bro. It just like feels like a truck. Like, I don't know. It's like the boxy design to me is interesting. And I know I wouldn't pay for it, but like, I do think it looks cool. So Tesla right here is at 321. Again, Tesla, crappy earnings. NVIDIA 178 has not really tanked, as the bears would say it should have tanked to, the low 200s. So regardless of the earnings, the AI sentiment is still very high on what Tesla could become. Now, maybe if they get Sydney Sweeney to advertise the Tesla Cybertruck, that could get some sales. That could get some sales. I'm not being a follower, bro. I genuinely think the Cybertruck, if I thought the Cybertruck was ugly, I would say it. Like, I have no problem critiquing Tesla designs. Like the Model Y, I got so much shit for saying the new Model Y was ugly. I was like, dude, my Model Y looks cooler than the new Model Y. Like, I just felt like it was a nothing burger. I was like, this is the brand new design everyone's been going crazy about. But the Cybertruck, I really do like the design. Now, Sydney Sweeney's not working with Tesla because she's working with American Eagle, and the new controversy around American Eagle, which Chris Camillo, out of all people, is short. He's someone I do respect. I don't know if I agree with this argument, though. But he said viral negative backlash on TikTok from the brand's core female demographic says otherwise too early to call sales impact, but I'm short American Eagle on a speculative trade. The argument here is that Sydney Sweeney has good genes, Geans, has been reinterpreted by the TikTok intellectuals. And I don't mean to say that in a demeaning way. I'm just genuinely, this is the virality of the message that's going on TikTok. That genes is a pseudonym for GENES, aka genetics. And American Eagle is saying that blonde white women are the superior genetic race. And as a result, American Eagle are supporting Nazis. If that sounds crazy, you can have your own perspective on that, but that is exactly, like, I watched like 5 videos to make sure I'm not misinterpreting it. That's exactly what the TikTok intellectuals are claiming is the problem with Sydney Sweeney. Did I spell GEANS? I meant GENES. Goodness, dude. I spelled jeans wrong. Goodness gracious, dude. GENES. So they're saying that Sydney Sweeney is a Nazi and that American Eagle supports Nazis because white people have the best genes. Not like jeans to wear on your legs, but genes from a eugenics perspective. My personal opinion, I don't think that's what American Eagle is trying to say. I think they're just trying to sell some freaking jeans, and Sydney Sweeney's hot, and they're like, hey, hot girl wearing jeans, that's going to boost up sales. But yeah, you do have a section of the population that is now boycotting American Eagles. So there you go. That's what we got. TikTok intellectuals talk about an oxymoron. I mean, dude, sometimes these arguments, they proliferate in the way they do. And if I was in high school, I would have paid attention to this argument. I would have been like, yeah, there's a point. You put this in now, but you grow up and you're kind of like, no, I think they're a company that really doesn't give a shit about promoting white people's genes. I think they want to just sell genes so the stock can go up. I think that's what the executives at American Eagle really care about. I don't think they really care about this agenda to promote white superiority. I think they just want the stock to go up. The color they care about more than white is green. And so, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily what's going on with American Eagle. Let's go back to some coverage on what's going on with jobs and tariffs, and then we'll keep going from there.
That there'll be any different language, or that in his press conference that he'll share something that may be different from what we heard more recently from the Fed chair?
Yes, because I think if they are going to set up for a September cut, then he will speak more positively, I think, about what we've been seeing so far on the overall inflation numbers. Certainly there's a risk, and he'll note that there's still going to be inflationary pressures, but that so far the economy has absorbed the tariffs well on inflation. It's a nod to any dissenters we might get, and a potential nod to a rate cut that we might get as soon as September. Ironically, the president has been saying we need rate cut, Too late, Powell.
Yeah.
What he should be pointing to is actually signs of weakness in the economy that would propel the Fed to cut
But you don't want to do that.
You could point to the 1.4% personal consumption and say that was the tamest we've seen. You can point to, the business spending, which actually came down in the GDP numbers, and some of the signs of softness around the labor market, which actually does help the Fed's case. And so the other thing I would be on the lookout today is any language around softening in consumer demand or in the employment situation, which would lead them further to a cut.
Okay.
All right. So we will see what Powell does later throughout the day. Wow. Typhoon in China sweeps through Shanghai. 283,000 people evacuate. We're going to probably get a lot more coverage on this earthquake that happened in Russia. 8.7 magnitude. That's a very large earthquake. And that had some ripple effects in Japan. And it seems like now, potentially, as a result, in Shanghai. Typhoon, 283,000 people. Also, Hawaii had a bunch of tsunami warnings last night, and you had a lot of people evacuating Hawaii. So you got a bunch of stuff going on there across the world from a natural disaster perspective as well. Omar, thanks for the $5. I'm 19 and watch your vids daily, bro. I love them. I'm up $6,500 this week on AMD contracts. Average price for my shares is 88. Wow. Dude, incredible. 19 years old, trading in the derivatives market around AMD. Even if you lose all your money, you have plenty of time to recover. And the fact that you've been able to find AMD at 88 DCA, be able to gain some leverage with the options. Not the worst thing in the world. So congratulations, man. Absolutely incredible. And you are starting very young. Nick, thank you for the 10 euros. Hims and AMD, or sorry, pounds. That's a pound. That is a pound. It's not a euro. It's a pound. Hims and AMD positions doing well. Thanks for all you do to the community, Mitt. Nick, congrats. Hims and AMD. I mean, Hims, AMD, a lot of these names that people have had to DCA into for the majority of this year have done very well, especially AMD. So absolutely incredible to see this playing out. Robinhood, CNBC did a little segment on them. Let's see what they expect going into earnings after the bell.
Moving on to a company reporting its results after the bell, we're talking about Robinhood. The stock's more than doubled since its last report, part of a very impressive run so far this year. Mackenzie Sagalos has more on what you should watch in those results.
Hey, good morning, Frank. As Robinhood investors await second quarter earnings, expectations are running high. The online broker has seen its stock surge 180% this year after nearly doubling in 2024. Its market cap now sits at $93 billion, just behind Coinbase, one of its biggest crypto rivals. Yet Robinhood was left out of the S&P 500 again in the latest reshuffle. Datadog joined first, followed by the Trade Desk and Block. All companies were tens of billions of dollars less than Robinhood. Now, that rally in Robinhood stock reflects the company's transformation into a full-stack global fintech player. With U.S. fintech funding down 42% in the first half of 2025, deal-making has accelerated, and Robinhood stands out as one of the savviest buyers, picking up Bitstamp and WonderFi to expand its institutional crypto rails and regulatory footprint worldwide. When results hit after the close, analysts are expecting Robinhood to report earnings of 31 cents per share, up almost 50% from a year ago. They'll also be watching whether Robinhood can sustain its strong deposit growth, keep transaction-based revenue, particularly from crypto, climbing, and maintain momentum in areas like equity trading, net interest revenue, and paid gold subscribers. Frank, back to you.
Hopefully they crush, man. They've got the opportunity to. The gold subscribers also is very interesting because it's like, we know they added for a fact 115,000 gold subscribers based on their $1 million giveaway. But could they have added 500,000 gold subscribers? I'm expecting around 380. But if they added anywhere near that, that could also be the bump on revenues, which is something that could get a big beat on earnings as well. 159.20 on Pounter. Let me check 160 resistance right here and see what we've got going on. 160 we hit last week. We kind of touched it on Monday, and then we haven't got back there. 160 resistance today. 115,000 shares. 115,000 shares. SoFi, are we also at 22? SoFi, wow, 2187, folks. She's recovering. Let me check SoFi resistance as well. 22 has 8,000 shares. 8,000 shares. Figma's IPO is tomorrow, not today. Figma's IPO is tomorrow. So you got SoFi right there at a level that could be potentially breaking even from yesterday. I'm taking my girlfriend's 200 euros from Coinbase to Robinhood to pump the earnings today. We appreciate the continued transfer to increase assets under custody. No, in general, dude, I think they're going to crush. I really do think they're going to crush. I don't know how the stock's going to react. And I just, everyone needs to remember the stock is up a lot, but also, does it have room to run? Is it cheap compared to where they could really grow? Yeah, I think it is. And I think people want exposure. The question is just how good of a quarter is it for Vlad to really feel, okay, this is the time to further step in and see if they can get some momentum. Is Msft live on Bloomberg? Let me see. Let me see if he's live on Bloomberg. We'll try to see if we can get some comments from him. Msft did a big interview with CNBC yesterday, basically said, hey, we're making good progress with China. The tariffs, they're not extended fully for 90 days yet, but they're probably going to be extended soon for 90 days. And that should be good to give China more negotiating room with dealing with the overall trade negotiations. I don't see Msft live on Bloomberg or CNBC or anywhere else, so I don't think he's live, unless he's live on a different network. But I don't see him live right now. Google, where's Googs? Yeah, 12:30 tomorrow likely will be the IPO for Figma. 12:30. 196 on Googs. That is slightly green. Oh, yeah. This is also, thank you for this, Peggy. I forgot about this. White House is going to be unveiling their digital assets report today. They had a bunch of crypto legislation come out last week. And now they're going to be kind of culminating that crypto legislation with their overall framework for digital assets. I don't think it's going to like pump Bitcoin or anything, but or ETH, but it will be something that a lot of the crypto people will be looking at when that comes out. Bitcoin right here, 118.1 right now. It's already out. They already released it. Robin is trying to get to 107. Okay, I will try to find that then, and I will dig through it and see what they say. White House Digital Asset Report. Yeah, I think it's on their website, so I will try to pull that up, see what they're saying. All right, so we got Hoodie trying to break 107, SoFi trying to break 22, Google at 196. Markets are relatively calm for JPOW coming up soon. 636 on the S&P. Let's do a poll on this, which maybe it's useless to do a poll, but we might as well try. Does Powell cut or pause? How many people actually think he's going to vote honestly? Don't just vote for fun. Vote honestly. How many people actually think he'll cut? If I see 80% cut, and I know you guys are trolling. Okay, so 21% of you think he's going to cut. There's a 2.1% chance. There's a 2.1% chance that he might. Is there a troll option? From Besant's recent post, there might be a cut. Let me see. Let's see Besant's recent post. I mean, Besant is, Besant has breakfast with the guy every week and tries to get him to cut. But that has not been happening. Here's a clip of Besant yesterday. This is what he just posted on the updates with China.
Everyone can see the arc of where these trade deals are going. I won't say that the Chinese were on their heels because they're very composed. But Vice Premier Hu Feng is a seasoned politician. But it's clear that the momentum was with us. That when you get the EU, the world's largest trading bloc, when you get that deal inked, we had Japan, we had Indonesia, we had Vietnam. So not only did we have the EU, who has a very large trading relationship with China, we also had three of their neighbors. I think that everyone can see the arc of where these trade deals.
I mean, he's bullish. I will be live at 2:30 for Powell, but the question is just, will Powell actually give us a rate cut? We got a headline here from Mercedes. Mercedes pauses U.S. EV deliveries from Reuters. Mercedes is hitting the brakes on shipping its EQ electric models to the U.S., citing slower demand and bloated dealer inventory. They are still planning 17 new EVs and 19 gas models by 2027. I don't think I've ever seen a Mercedes EV in my life, like on the roads, but I've seen them on like the videos and they look pretty cool. I've just never seen people actually drive them. So it does make sense that demand maybe is not the best for them. Where is Hoodie? Are we at 107? We touched 107, 107.03, 106.89. Just below that 107 level. I talked about Hood and Grab in the morning, so you can rewind a bit. We talked about Hood and Grab. My TLDR, I think both are going to crush. I have no idea how the stocks are going to reflect. The number one thing for Grab, Hood back to 107. Can they increase their adjusted EBITDA guidance? If they do, I think it should be good. Market's expecting $811 million in revenue and a cent of EPS, about $11 million of profit. And then for Hoodie, market wants $915 in revenue, about 35 cents in profit. I think Hood's going to crush on both of those. It's just how much they're going to beat. How much are they going to beat by? That I think will determine where the market goes, and then ultimately, what they say in terms of July activity. But I think both are going to do well. It's just, you don't know. It's one of those things where, like, when you become an investor, whether you have Meta, Microsoft, the SoFi people went through it yesterday, like when you have a heavy position in a company, two companies that are reporting on the same day, large portions of your net worth are in those companies, right? You got to go through what every investor goes through with dealing with the fact that, your accumulation of net worth is determined on how these companies execute. But you're the one who allocated the capital. You're the one who invested in Hood or Grab or SoFi or Meta or Microsoft. And so as much as it's out of your control, it's also completely in your control because you didn't have to make the investment if the earnings don't do well. But also the nuance is if the earnings don't do well, it's one quarter. And like maybe, it's a crappy earnings or maybe the stock price is not reacting to a good earning, whatever it is. And that's okay. So there's so much nuance that comes with just being an investor and picking individual names, not ETFs, right? Where your risk is significantly diminished because at the end of the day, your reward is not that high, but your downside is not that high either. And then you just got to hope for the best and hope that these companies can execute. So I think they will. But later today, we are going to see Rocket Lab. Is that making a move back to 46? Rocket Lab trying to get back to 46, 45.81 on the lab of rockets. Imagine buying an EV that can't drive itself. Yeah, dude, my dad's been getting annoyed at his Tesla because he's like, so we have now a built-in charger in the house. But before he was like, well, what's the point of the Tesla if like I'm paying the same amount I'm paying at the gas station, right? Because he drives a lot every day. So he has to fill up the Tesla like every 3 days, 3.5 days. And that's the same with his car. So he's like, we're not saving any money. I was like, Dad, I didn't buy the car because of the electricity fees compared to the gas fees. Like there's this like misnomer that, oh, a Tesla's cheaper because you don't have to pay for gas. Like that's not true. Like, I mean, it's slightly too, maybe you save a couple bucks every week, but like you're still paying 20, 23 bucks at the pump, right? At the electricity pump. I told him we got the car because the car is amazing. And that eventually he doesn't do self-driving yet. I do self-driving, but when you start FSD, you're going to realize why the car is, and he loves the car. Like he enjoys driving it, but he's so money-minded. He was like, we're not saving any money. I'm like, but that's not the point of it, was not to save money. The point of it is, hey, it's quieter. You don't have to deal with going to a gas station. Like there's so many other benefits to the car versus the amount you pay on the EV. But now he charges through home, right? Yeah, but we're now recently charging at home over the past week. But before he had to like stop at the charging station every 3 days. And I think he thought it would have like 500 miles, and it's like half that. So that's what annoyed him a little bit. But overall, the car is still incredible. It is useful to not stop at a gas station. That saves so much time as well. Yeah, I agree. I mean, dude, I love the car. Now, granted, I don't drive as much as him, so I'm not constantly charging it, but I love my Tesla. Like, it's like a video game. You're driving it every day. Dude, yeah. Oh, I didn't even tell you guys this. So yesterday I was dropping my sister off to the airport, and we were merging lanes on the turnpike in New Jersey to get to the airport. And I'm on FSD. My sister's already a little, hinged because she's like, hey, like she doesn't trust FSD. And so there's a car that I can tell is making a mistake. I'm like getting into the lane, and then I see the car that's trying to cut into the lane behind me, but they're already ahead of me, but they're not ahead enough to cut in front of me. So, you've always been, many people have had that situation where they've got to make a decision. Where do they go? Do they wait for me to go through and then they do cut in the middle? And so the solution was me taking control of the car and going a little bit to the left, not a lot, just a little bit, to give that car that's like stuck in the middle of that intersection, or not the intersection, that lane switch, to have a little bit of breathing room to then come behind me after we get into the lane off the turnpike. And I didn't do anything. I literally was like, hey, let's see what happens. And me and my sister are talking at the same time, and she notices this. She doesn't freak out, but she notices this. And then lo and behold, the Tesla, like it was almost like magic, bro. It just like slightly curved away, gave the car the room to move in, and then it curved right back in as the car had the ability to then move right behind me. And then my sister doesn't say anything because, we're both talking about a different subject. And then I'm like, did you see that? And she's like, yeah, I saw it. She hated to admit it, but she was like, yeah, I saw. I was like, that was good, right? She's like, yes, that was good. That was good. I was like, that was really good. I was like, that was incredible. Because I was 2 seconds away from taking control of the car. And I said, no, let's see what it does. And it actually did exactly what a human would do on a busy highway going to the airport. And even my sister, who hates FSD, Bitmine up 9% right here, she couldn't deny it. She was like, that was good. And it was just funny because like you could tell she noticed it, but she didn't want to say anything until I said, hey, did you see that? And she was like, yes, I saw it. That was good. It's getting better. It's getting a lot better. And that is why it's also hard to be bearish Tesla. It's just hard to be bearish Tesla. Yeah, you don't need maintenance either as well. And you get a frunk. Dude, you get a frunk, which is amazing. Saad, thank you for the 5 super chat. 10,000 shares of Palantir at $19. Thanks to you, Legend. Crazy to think how long ago it was back when there wasn't even a Palantir Reddit group. Incredible, man. Absolutely incredible. I mean, this company has just changed our lives to such a degree. And I know people cannot stand the valuation. I'm not even going to go into all the different ways to make sense of the valuation from one perspective. The one thing I will say that I do like repeating is that Palantir did it the right way. They didn't make money for 20 years because they focused on the product. They focused on the mission. They focused on serving the customer. Once they finally focused on making money, it was a byproduct of all the goodwill they had done for 20 years to build something valuable. And the market is rewarding them. And you can have a trillion reasons for why the market's rewarding them, but that is the way to build anything in life. You give unconditionally. And eventually the byproduct of that is the world recognizes how much you give, and then you get. And I think that's what's happening with Palantir. And so that doesn't mean it's a cheap stock, but it does mean qualitatively the market has recognized this is the major player. They believe they will grow into the valuation, and the world wants to be part of the story. And that's why Palantir is at these levels right here. Rocket Lab 46, there you go. You got Rocket Lab 45.92, just touched 46. BMNR, a nice little 10% day, 12% day. All right, this has got to make people happy. I know it's been ugly for the past 2 days, so BMNR getting some love right here. Now up 12% on the day. Not too bad. Jack, thank you for the $20 super chat. Admit, you're my investment sensei. Your enthusiasm is a great way to start my day and confirm my bias. Keeping an eye out for the next hoodie. You nailed that one. Here's a token for a new chair worthy of you. Jack, appreciate it. Means the world. Obviously, it is very, very difficult to get some of these names right, and I will likely be wrong in the future. I've been wrong plenty of times already. Hood is one that I think not even just me, quite frankly, but collectively the community came together to really do due diligence on that one, including Palantir as well. And they've just been great community investments. But even names that I've not been touting as like names that I'm super bullish on, AMD, so many of you for the past 8 months came together and said, this is going to be a winner. 80 to 170, it's a winner. HIMS, right? Was stuck at 20 for the longest, 20 to 65. Almost, it hit 66 today, up 8%. It's became a winner. So, hopefully the excitement I bring every morning by bringing everyone's due diligence together, not just mine, is what can make a lot of us a lot of money as we try to keep allocating capital. So not too bad. Robinhood right there, just below 107. HIMS at 65. I did not buy Ethereum yet. I've been buying a lot of Grab, folks. I've been telling you guys every day I'm buying a lot of Grab. I have a lot of Grab shares, not just options. So most of my money has been going to Grab. And maybe that means, and dude, the level of what do you call it? Desire I have had to sell all my Grab shares after hours when we get these stupid pumps to 570, 590, and I'm up a lot of money after hours, knowing that it's going to drop back to 530. I've not done it, but I've wanted to do it like 3 times at this point. Because when you have a lot of shares and then it goes up and you're like, all right, I can sell it here and I'll just buy it back tomorrow. No problem. But then I'm like, that's not what I do. I'm not going to do that. And then tomorrow, and then the next day it dumps to 530. I lose all the gains. Then after hours, it comes right back up to 570. And I'm like, I have another chance. And then I miss out on doing it again. So I've held all my shares. I've just DCA'd at this point. I don't know what the earnings will do to the stock, but I haven't been buying Ethereum because I've been buying Grab. Honestly, I just want more shares. Yeah, it's a trap. As soon as you sell, the next morning, it's like $6. $6. It's not going down. And then you start buying at 6. And then guess what? It starts selling off to 570 and then you're back holding. It happens every time. So it's like, that's when you just like hold your breath and don't day trade it. But Grab has been giving you so many opportunities to do it. And as a result, that's something that people have to watch out for. Well, didn't Sofi have a longer growth runway than Grab? Maybe. I mean, again, Sofi to me as a business, my pick is Hood, right? I made my pick. And by the way, after that 44% growth quarter, I am interested in potentially buying Sofi shares because it's hard to ignore that growth. I am just curious, can AWS of FinTech ramp up? Because then that would make me really excited. So I've got to do a little bit more DD on that. But Grab's undervaluation compared to SoFi in terms of their potential to grow and their cash position, along with the entire region growing and compounding their GDP at almost 7%, that's what gets me very excited. Along with the founder of Grab, Anthony Tan. But I think SoFi is going to grow fine. I think it'll be good. And I think long-term, it's not going to be, a horrible position at all. Amit, when would you sell Grab? I have 200,000 shares. So honestly, again, my price target, I publicly put it out there. I think it's $10 in 2027. I think that plays out. I know how exciting it would be to day trade this because of the ups and downs, but I do think over the next 8 quarters, we get some pretty strong earnings growth and we see 10. And at 10, I wouldn't sell it either. I would just hold on. But then you could take some risk off the table. But if it makes a run tomorrow to like 650 or something, I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe like if we can get above 550 and hold that as the floor, I'd be happy. Like taking some off the table at 570, 580 is not crazy. But long term, I do think there's a double in this in the next year and a half. Fair value of Grab to me is 750. 750. Based on the valuation and the models that I've looked at. Oh, Steve. Okay. Yeah, Steve, dude. Let's see if he picks up. I would love to see if he can call in right here. Steve, you guys know how Steve has been resident bear on SoFi every time, even though he was the most bullish when this thing was $7, but then Noto pissed him off for the past couple of quarters. He's back to being a bull. Back to being a big bull on SoFi. I talked to him a little bit last night and he said that quarter took away all of his bearishness. And he doesn't even care about the dilution. He's like, dude, who cares about the dilution? They just did 44% revenue growth, which I agree with. I don't think the dilution is that big of a deal. I just long-term, dude, I made my bet. I want to hold Robinhood. I might buy a little SoFi, but for like a real position, I'm happy holding that name. Okay. He's in a meeting. Can't pick up. He's in a meeting. We'll try to get him on tomorrow and get his thoughts on SoFi. He was on Tanner's stream last night. You could listen to him on Tanner, but he is very, very bullish. BMNR, she's getting a move. SoFi 2175. BMNR, wow, 3623. Ethereum's not even moving today. So who's buying this? Is that algos coming in? There's no big Ethereum move. I doubt they're buying back their shares here. So Robinhood just below 107. Not sure why that one's moving the way it's moving, up almost 13.5%. Yeah, maybe Kathy's buying more. Maybe Kathy's buying more. Did this come out this morning? Tesla signs $4.3 billion LG battery deal. Let me look that up. I think I saw that headline this morning. Tesla, Samsung deal, battery deal. It seems like a lot of these deals are starting to get signed for Tesla. Yeah, $4.3 billion to source lithium from LG Energy, as per Bloomberg. There you go. A person familiar with the matter said in the second tie-up for the EV maker in South Korea this month. They're getting the ecosystem ready and the supply chain ready to do what they need to do when it comes to scaling Optimus and Robotaxi. And that's going to mean the stock is probably stuck for a bit, but that should be okay. Because to me, that is accumulation. To Bank of America, bro. Bank of America has been saying for the past, 7 months that Jay Powell's not going to cut at all, and they don't expect a rate cut. So let's get their take right here and see why exactly they think we're not going to get a cut.
High core PCE with a 3% handle on it. Yeah. That's inflation that's rising. That doesn't really give the Fed the green light to be cutting anytime soon.
Right. Inflation that might be 3% when any of the cracks in the labor market were greatly, the demise is greatly exaggerated. It just hasn't
completely agree with you. The unemployment rate, which is the best single summary indicator of the labor market, especially given the challenges and the changes that we're seeing in labor supply, was last at 4.1%. That's extremely low. The Fed, in their lowest estimate for the unemployment rate at the end of this year, was at 4.3%. So you're sort of out of bounds strong as far as the labor market goes. And to use Chair Powell's words, the labor market isn't exactly crying out for rate cuts.
Yeah, so they could justify, if they really do have two mandates, they could justify that one seems to be under control. Both of them seem under control, but if one isn't under control, the inflation side would be the one to worry about.
That's exactly right. And again, the bond market seems to be pricing in a lot of cuts right now. We wouldn't be surprised to see front-end yields rise today. as we learn that Powell is not going to perhaps justify the extent of the cuts that are priced. Our economists have had a great call. They don't think that the Fed will be cutting at all in 2025. So that's almost 45 basis points that are priced for the year that could potentially come out.
You think there's any way that the Fed could end up with egg on its face from a chicken, whether it's first, I don't know how that works exactly. But do you think, here's the scenario that I'm saying where they could end up looking bad.
Do you guys think a Fed cut? Do you think at least one cut in 2025 from the Fed?
We really are missing the bigger picture on inflation. And there are major forces in housing or shelter that are coming down, that this is going to be a one-shot deal. Companies are going to absorb a lot of it, and you're not going to see inflation. That we're still on that glide path eventually to 2%. And there's no reason not to have loosened, because we're too tight right now, really.
That is the risk that they are taking.
And it could happen, couldn't it?
It certainly could.
And the fingers would be pointed at them and say, you don't want to be political, yet you were not independent because you couldn't cut, because you had to resist what looked like pressure.
If you look at the stuff in the stock market with the meme stocks that take off and other things,
It's all systems. Yeah, all systems.
So I think that's a great
we
point.
got AI controlling why, that's half this market is up on AI.
I think you can ask yourself, how restrictive is monetary policy today?
Yeah.
I think it's a very
Does
good
anyone
question.
know?
No
one knows.
But if you look at equity markets, I think they're telling you that it's not terribly restrictive. If you look at the dollar, it's not telling you it's terribly restrictive. If you look at the labor market, it's not telling you that it's terribly restrictive. So the Fed is taking a risk here in keeping monetary policy potentially
Nice to have some dry powder
too long.
Always be, these were hard-won rate increases that were difficult.
It's hard if you're trying to buy a house right now. I
But it is
understand
hard.
that, but it's also hard if you're a senior and you're saving and you're getting nothing for it if they lower rates. So there's always winners and losers with what
Exactly.
happens.
But the way they judge things right now is that the labor market's not crying out for a cut. Inflation is higher than they would like.
Yeah.
They think that they can be patient and wait and see, but the bond market continues to expect some easing later this year.
So you get off on talking about all this stuff? I mean, is it interesting to you?
It is interesting to me.
Joe is a national treasure. Joe Kernan is a national treasure. I think we'll get a rate cut, dude. I don't think Bank of America is going to be right on this. I think we'll get a rate cut. However, you can't say they don't have a succinct argument when you put all the data together. But in the face of that, 25 bips is not hurting the economy. And second of all, if there are any cracks in the economy that show up over the next 6 months and we haven't cut, everyone's going to say Powell's been too late. Trump's not going to be the only one saying he's too late. So I would think Powell and the Fed, you already have Fed governors that want to cut. Again, what's the name? Waller and Bauman are going to dissent today. This will be the first time since 1993 since two Fed governors have dissented on a decision. Hasn't happened in over 30 years. I think that sets up September, Rock Library here up 4.2, to potentially be more likely for us to see a cut if there's already growing dissent inside of the Federal Reserve. By the way, Citigroup, they raised their pound price target from 115 to 158. They're still neutral on it, but 115 to 158. So you're seeing some upgrades on Palantir. S&P 635, Robinhood 106, Google 196, SoFi 2165, HIM 6480, Grab right there at 531, Bitmine up 11%, and then Ethereum right here at 3794. All right, folks, that is it for me. I'm going to have to leave a little early today. I am headed to the Big Apple, and I will be live streaming from New York City for the Fed chair meeting at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll be live at 2:25 Eastern Standard Time, and then we'll have hoodie earnings probably at 3:30. Tanner, Roy, and I will be live. You will find out why I'm in New York later today. I don't want to say why, but let's just say it'll be pretty cool. I'm not on CNBC or Bloomberg. I promise I'm not going to be on like CNBC Overtime or something, but I literally can't. I'll be streaming Robinhood earnings. So but I think you guys will enjoy the reason. And it's going to be pretty cool. So it should be a fun day. And I'll be in New York kind of the whole night, and we'll be back tomorrow morning. I won't be able to stream Grab. Hopefully Grab puts up some good numbers, and I'll be looking at the results while I'm at dinner tonight in New York, and hopefully it's good results. We don't know if the stock's going to move because they have the call at 8 p.m. I think the results come out at 7:30. The market closes at 8 p.m. The market closes at 8 p.m. So last time Grab reported results, amazing results. Stock was at 482. Stock was stuck at 42. We had no movement, literally zero movement. Today, I don't know. There's a lot more hype. There's a lot more people that are excited. But when you have 30 minutes of volume, you're not. I don't expect a price move tonight, up or down. Maybe, but more likely tomorrow in the pre-markets is what you're going to see. Grab earnings looks like. It is not a grinder date. Goodness gracious. It's actually someone who works at a very big investment fund. So I'll tell you guys about it tomorrow. But they reached out, and we're gonna have some dinner and talk about stocks and all that stuff. And honestly, I don't even know why they want to meet. They reached out and they said, "Hey, Mitt, can we have dinner?" And I was like, "All right, sure." I saw their bio. I was like, "Yep, let's do it." Like, that's a big investment fund. Let's do it. I don't know what the hell you want to talk about, but I don't care. Let's do it. So we'll do that tonight. And then tomorrow we'll cover Grab and Hood in the morning. And yeah, hopefully we get some momentum on both those names. And then we got Microsoft and Meta. So we got a big day. Powell, Microsoft, Meta, Hoodie, lots of other companies. Grab at the end of the day. It's going to be a very, very important day. And hopefully that is good for everybody as we see how these companies ultimately can execute. All right, word of the day is hooey. If this is hooey, I'm going to be so upset. There's no way this has to be hooey. This is going to be hooey.
Hooey.
Okay, there you go. Silly talk, writing, or ideas. All this talk about a miracle night cream is a bunch of hooey. Don't fall for their marketing hooey. Their quesadilla maker barely works. All right, hopefully we don't get some hooey on earnings today. Hopefully we don't get some silly talk or writing or ideas. Yeah, is that a sign for Hoodie? Is that a sign for Hoodie? Is that if they just replace the E with a D? Is that our signal, folks? Is that our signal? Is that what we need? Like, I kind of want to buy 10 shares of Hood right now just based on that. There you go. Hooey. Bullish Hood. That is going to be our definition of it. So there you go. Siege, thank you for the $20 super chat. Please don't leave us for an investment fund. I can promise I'm not going to be leaving for an investment fund. Dude, working at an investment fund is boring. There's nothing exciting about where I do research all day and then I communicate that with everybody. The investment analysts do research all day and they put it into a report and communicate with their managing directors. And then their managing directors buy a stock. They get all the praise for buying a stock. The investment analysts get a fancy 6-figure salary with healthcare and vacation and all this stuff, but they get none of the actual publicity of the research that they put out because they're just an investment analyst at a fund, So there's nothing exciting about working at an investment fund, but obviously I would want to network with people that work at that fund. So I would never quit social media or content. It would take a lot for me to quit social media or content, dude. Yeah, there you go. Erwin works at one and everyone is a dick. Yeah, there you go, dude. Like these are corporate bureaucracies that are not fun to work at. Even now, you may love equity research and you may hate public speaking. And so therefore, boom, it's a perfect job. I love equity research and public speaking. And so this is kind of, the way it manifested for me. But it would take a lot to leave content because content is my passion. So what if Zucks offered you 4 years, 1 billion? 1 billion, dude, 4 years to leave content creation and become an AI researcher. First of all, I don't know how to do AI research, so I doubt I would get the offer. But second of all, dude, I'm like, you guys are gonna say I'm capping, but genuinely, it would take a lot for me to quit because my soul would not. Dude, yesterday I couldn't tweet for 10. See, you guys got me ranting, and I'm supposed to be leaving. I couldn't tweet for 10 hours because Elon broke Twitter. I have so many ideas all day. As a content creator, I get 50 to 100 different ideas every day. Only 7 to 10 of them make it to reality in terms of coming online. And every time I had an idea yesterday, I went to grab my phone, I typed it up, and I was like, wait a second, I can't post it because Twitter's not working. It's like I lost my voice. It's almost like I felt my thoughts didn't matter if they didn't get posted on X. And so the idea that you would give me a lot of money to go do something, but I couldn't publicly communicate. This is why everyone's like, oh, well, why don't you work at Palantir or Robinhood? It's like, first of all, I want to talk about Palantir and Robinhood. If I work for them, I can't talk about them. There's no way. You can't have the freedom of speech to talk about a company when you work at that company. So the autonomy I get by being able to build this on my own and then put my ideas out into the world, it's priceless, dude. Now, if someone comes up with $1 billion, I get it. That's hard to turn that. Like, I get it, but my soul would not be fulfilled with $1 billion if I couldn't cover the markets every day. So I love doing this. I love doing this every day. And I deeply, deeply appreciate that everyone's here every day. And I think what you guys are going to see tonight in New York, you guys will see it. It will happen. You'll know the reason why I'm there. It is a milestone for the channel. It's a milestone for me as a content creator. And it's a milestone for this entire community. So I think you guys will enjoy it. 1 billion for 4 years. Shut up. No, but I'm serious, bro. If you gave me $1 billion, but I had to shut up for 4 years, like, I'm genuinely like, look, I don't know what I would do if, like, when you give someone $1 billion offer, like, you know, things are a lot harder to think about versus the hypothetical, but genuinely, I wouldn't just say yes immediately. Like a lot of people, I would have to think, if I can't do what I love to do, like, what's the point of it, right? It's like, at the end of the day, you still want to be happy in life. And this is, you know, this is what makes me happy. So, all right. Love you all. I'll see you guys 2:30 for JPow. And then we got Hood, Microsoft, Meta, and Grab after the bell. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys from the Big Apple, even though your boy has a lot of potassium, because like a banana, I'm appealing. I'll see you guys after the bell. Think about that one. Think about that one. Think about that one. Love you guys. See you later. Bye.